Kia ora and welcome everybody to the Samsung iRacing NZ Cup here at LPL. My name is Matt Smidros and beaming in remotely is prestigious sim racer Matt. Welcome onto the show, Matt. It's good to have you back here. And how does it feel to be here for another sim racing cup here on the commentator's side?
Yeah, I'm very excited to be here, as you say, on the other side of the fence this time. Usually I've been racing in the past, but super excited. We've got a big competition here in the Samsung iRacing Cup. So yeah, to get into it with these top 24 drivers is going to be awesome.
Yeah, going to be a real good one, guys. But let's get on the same track together and figure out how things are going to be working over the next few weeks. Of course, we've gone ahead and grabbed the top 24 races from all across the country, and we're going to be racing them over 4 weeks to find out who's going to be our very first Samsung iRacing NZ champion. And of course, the way we're going to do that is we're going to give them some championship points every race. The winner is going to be taking home 24 points. The second place will take 23 points, and so on and so forth down the list. Now, every week we're going to be going all around the globe and taking 2 localized tracks every week. So we're getting a little taste of everything all around the world. Now, of course, these races, they do it for the pride and the joy, but of course, they've also got to do it for a little bit of cash money as well. So taking a look at the prize pool here, $1,500 is up for grabs there, with first place going to be taking home $700. Then it goes down to $350, and of course, it gets even lower as you go down, so you really want to take that first place slot for sure. Monkey Matt, I mean, it's always good to have a little bit of cash on the line, of course, alongside that glory that these races really want to go for.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, these guys are competitive to begin with, but then to add the cash prize in there is that extra motivation. There's going to be a real battle at the front, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I can imagine so, but let's take a look at where these battles are going to be taking place tonight. Our localized tracks are going to be hitting the US of A. First up, we're going to be going to Daytona International Speedway. We're going to be going there for 19 laps. And then around about 8 o'clock, we'll be hitting up the WeatherTech Raceway, Laguna Seca, another classic 25 laps. So, Matt, I mean, look, they're both classics. They're both from America. These racers are going to know that, but what kind of nitty-gritty details are they really going to have to know?
Yeah, 2 awesome tracks, as you say. Excited to see how they go, but Daytona is that mix of the oval track with the infield road section. So they've got some fast flowing bits, but then also the tight hairpins in the middle are really going to test their braking ability. And then Laguna Seca, it's twisty as well. Brakes are going to be crucial tonight, I think, particularly into turn 1, actually, on both tracks.
Oh, man, turn 1, it's always my favorite because it's always the messiest on the first lap. But let's take a look at the list of the drivers who hopefully will be making a bit of a mess tonight, at least somewhere along the lines. Our first 12 races, Monkey Matt, I mean, you've raced with a lot of these guys before, so I want to ask you, who's standing out here?
Yeah, there's definitely, I feel like there's a lot of names I could call out right now, but right at the top of the list there, Ewan Baker, he's one that we want to keep an eye on. He's actually qualified for the World Sim Racing Cup. He's going later this year to Monaco to compete in that, so he's got plenty of speed and he's proven it in the past already. And then also at the bottom of the list, I'm going to call out Antal Rafael Sabo. He's got great iRacing experience, but also he's made the transition and jumped into the real world and driven a real car and succeeded quite well at that as well. So keep an eye on those 2 to do well.
Yeah, you get such a good mix of the sim racing experience and real world. But moving on to our next 12 drivers, again, a lot of names that you've raced with before. I mean, have we got more real world racing experience in these races here?
Yeah, we do. I'll call out a couple because Matt Stevens, second on the list there, he's driven in the 2K Cup and he's raced in the 2K Cup iRacing series, so another one with that combined experience. And then if we look at the bottom of the list again, Richie Stanaway, hopefully he's able to make it tonight, we're not sure, but he actually qualified fastest, and he's a name a lot of the motorsport fans will recognise from the Australian Supercars and other series that he's done.
Man, setting records before we've even hit the track. I love to see it, but here we are on Daytona. The racers already getting ready for their qualifiers, actually underway as we speak. So before we get into those 19 laps, Monkey Matt, we're going to have to find out what that grid's going to look like. So taking a look at the track conditions here, it looks a little overcast here, plenty of light though, no rain, unfortunately for us, but probably fortunately for the racers.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure there'll be some sighs of relief from some of the drivers because actually leading into this, the drivers don't know what the weather conditions and track conditions are going to be like. So they do have to sort of have a bit of flexibility in their practice, I guess, to be prepared for different scenarios. Looks like we're all right here at Daytona, so they're just going to be getting their head down and getting their eye in at this qualifying session. 11 minutes still to go by the looks.
Yeah, it is 15 minutes in total they've had, so they've already been going around for about 4 minutes now. So we're actually getting a few of our first qualifying times in here. So Matt, with your experience on this track, I mean, what kind of qualifiers would you be setting here? Or is everyone pretty much beating you with the times we're seeing so far?
Yeah, I mean, actually, just quietly. Oh, there's a contact. These drivers are driving very close to each other in qualifying session. I'm very surprised to see this so early. You'd usually be trying to spread out.
Yeah,
I wonder if they're just thinking about those long straights and thinking about trying to tuck into some slipstream there.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit naughty to already be bumping. I mean, you've got plenty of time to qualify, as you guys can see, a little over 10 minutes to continue going. And looking at the times you've already got, you've got like a good 5 at least more laps to get some good times locking in. But I mean, first laps, you know, there's not really too much going on here. But I mean, are you looking at anything and thinking, wow, that guy's already locked in like a top 3 grid spot?
Yeah, these guys out there, they'll be setting some early quick lap times. So there's a little bit of tyre wear to contend with here. So the drivers are, on the early laps probably going to be the optimal. We might see them come into the pits later on and get some fresh tyres towards the end as well. But you can see Nathan and Hugo already setting good times in the 145s there. So those will be competitive. And Ewan Baker, I called out early on, he's lower down. So I think we're seeing some of these drivers still haven't quite got a clean lap in. We saw that contact early. So it's going to be crucial to find space, which I thought this track would be long enough that it would be easy to do, but seeing a lot of congestion early on.
Yeah, and you know, in terms of comparing this track to other tracks in its length, right? Well, like just under 2 minutes, right? It's not the longest track, but I mean, it's definitely not the shortest, correct?
No, yeah, and with those long straights here with the oval sections, we do see some drivers looking like they're going to come into the pits, change tires. With those long straights, it means there's not too many corners over the course of that 2 minutes. It's not flat out the whole time, but yeah, definitely a longer track. And when it comes to the race as well, 19 laps, it's going to be a longer format. So they need to have that consistency once we get into the race.
Yeah, so continuing on, drivers moving around the track here, just locking in those qualifying times. I mean, you can imagine you're feeling pretty comfortable if you're Nathan Anderson, Hugo Allen, Darren Lobb. I mean, all sitting 145s, right? And there's still probably plenty of room, though, for people to overtake them, right? I mean, those aren't unbeatable times by any means, I imagine. But like you mentioned, like the tire wear could really come into it. Like, is it really unthinkable that someone could beat them on, you know, 3 or 4 laps down the track in the qualifying, like maybe the last few minutes or so?
Yeah, I mean, particularly those drivers that haven't even set the full lap time yet. Those ones are hoping to jump up the order. But if you're one of those guys in the top already, you're feeling comfortable because you know you've got that banker lap behind you. You can push, and if you make a mistake towards the end, it's not going to be the end of the world. So you can really just go flat out when you do go for those last laps towards the end of the session. Still plenty of time though, so they can still get their eye in, find their space.
Yeah, and we should have the last few drivers coming in, locking in their qualifying times, I imagine hopefully shortly, right? Because we're just about to hit halfway through their qualifying time. And they do want to be able to use this time wisely. Like you said, the ones with the top kind of times, they've got a little room for error, they can play around a bit. But if you're sitting down there, like anything past the top 10, are you really getting a little worried here? Are you pushing yourself here? Or are you just hoping for a good, consistent lap? Are you doing anything risky, I guess, is what I'm asking here, if you're outside the top 10?
I think in this championship, the way it goes, you don't want to miss a race. You need to be collecting points every single race. So even if that means starting the race in 8th or something like that, it's better than maybe binning it and running into trouble and you know, messing with your mindset before you go into the race. But we talk about there being a lot of time, but we also mentioned this is a long lap. So they do have to sort of be aware that if they do come into the pits, you've got to have time to do the out lap, get back around, so 2 minutes, and then do another lap and take you another 2 minutes. So hopefully they've done their practice. They know the timing of when they can get in and still get a lap in.
All right, currently on board with Enrico Grond. Do you know much about this racer here? Because he's sitting rather low, only at the 15th place. In fact, out of the people that have locked in a time here, is currently the lowest. So, I mean, what can you tell me about this guy? Is he a relatively newer racer? Should he be way down there in 15th in the grid?
Yeah, Enrique, I would say, is one of the more unfamiliar names. I think he did qualify lower in the order, but the qualifying to get onto this grid was so competitive. Everyone who's made it you know, they're already top drivers. They've already proven themselves. Like, there was less than a tenth between each spot in the qualifying round. So
Wow.
I expect that, you know, this is going to be tight as well. We can already see that down to 15th with, you know, just over a second between all these drivers.
Yeah, actually already looking quite competitive, and it means that likely no one's really bombing their qualifying tracks. But I mean, you're probably not looking to bomb or do anything too risky on the qualifying tracks. At least you'd hope so. As for some of these remaining drivers, right, like you probably want to be seeing them locking in their qualifying times. You can see a few of them are sitting down there a little, all the way up to 1:47. Which is, you know, again, like only about a second more, but it does give that room to shave off a little bit of extra time, maybe get a little bit closer there. But as we continue on, right, like the top 3, top 4 haven't really changed, so no one's really pushing too much further forward on the grid. I mean, this could very likely be the grid that we're going to be looking at the end of qualifying.
Yeah, it's starting to settle down now as everyone's sort of done their push laps, but there are a couple of people like you and Baker, we talked about at the top of the show, still down the order. So I wonder if they still haven't quite dialed it in, or maybe the conditions they aren't what they had prepared for. It's just throwing them off a little bit. So you can see Nathan just on a bit of a warm down lap, slowly making his way around. He's already up towards the pointy end, currently in the front, so he's looking comfortable. Enrique with work to do.
Yeah, and you mentioned like maybe not being ready for the conditions, but I mean, looking at it, I mean, look, if I went outside on a day like that, I'd be pretty stoked, to be honest. But then again, I'm not a car, so I mean, is it?
Yeah, it's actually crucial.
Is it actually crazy to be like quite a high temperature? Is that what we're looking at here?
Yeah, the temperature definitely plays a big role with the tire physics in iRacing. So you really need to get the tires in the right operating window to be able to set the best lap times, and that's why we would have seen people come into the pits, switch tires, even though they've only done a couple of laps. They're not that old. Ewan Baker has set a faster time now, so he's 1:46. He's sort of joined that front battle in 10th, though, only half a second off the lead. That's how close it is.
Yeah, you'd probably expect him to be, I mean, like you said, a little further up. But I mean, these are just qualifying laps. But I mean, the grid can really mean everything, especially when, you know, you've got 24 races. The first few turns can get quite messy. You know, anyone in front of you is a liability, right? And you want to just not have to worry about that. I mean, Nathan Anderson's going to be pretty stoked. He's not going to have to worry about anyone clipping him on turn 1 or anything like that. I've seen some messy turn 1s on various tracks. And, you know, I'm always secretly hoping to see it because, you know, sim racing, no one's going to get hurt, I hope, at least not physically.
Yeah, it's actually a scary turn 1 here as well, so a lot can go wrong when it's such a big field. If you're in that midfield battle, it's going to be all on, and I'm sure we're going to see 2 wide, 3 wide into turn 1 as they try and sort themselves out. So to put yourself out in front is a nice position to be in, but then when you're on the front, you're always a little bit worried about what's going on behind you, if anyone's going to tag into the back of you as we head into turn number 1 on board with Ewan Baker, who has again improved his time now. He's up into 8th. And we're getting towards the pointy end now, so if they want to set a quick lap, they really need to be out there on it at the moment. Again, we're still seeing these drivers quite close together in qualifying. You can see ahead of you, and there's a couple of drivers just side by side, almost. So they're going to, I reckon, interfere with each other potentially on these qualifying laps, and that will slow you down, which is exactly what you don't want in a qualifying session.
Unless you've already qualified really well. Then, I mean, that's kind of bad sportsmanship, though. I imagine it's not very smiled upon in the sim racing community to do something like that.
Absolutely not. And we do actually have race control, live race control here tonight, so they'll be keeping an eye on everything that's going on out there, and if they do see anyone up to mischief, they will be handed penalties. So, yeah, they're not going to be able to get away with any sort of funny business like that. It's all just going to be a clean, fair fight, we hope.
Henry Thomas Kircher as well. I mean, a name we didn't really mention too much in the initial leaderboard. Sitting 13th in his qualifying time here. I mean, again, is this a name that you recognize, a little more unfamiliar? How did he qualify to even make it here tonight?
Yeah, this is one of the drivers. I think he qualified in 20th position, if my graphics are correct. So he's a little bit down the order, but he has got the iRacing background. I believe he's in the team Mark 1. So he definitely has the experience. I think he'll be ready to push forward in the races, and at the moment looking like he's going to be in that midfield battle, so going to have some work cut out for him.
Yeah, well, I mean, like I said, 13th in the qualifying time and didn't improve on it then, unfortunately, as he just finishes his qualifying lap. But that's going to be the last one as well. I mean, maybe you can squeeze out one more. I believe you get a little bit of overtime just to finish up your qualifying laps.
He's going to have time to get fully back around, so I think that might be him done. Some of these drivers, finished with their laps. They know they don't have time for another one, so they're off into the pits or just bailing out on turn number 1, getting out of people's way, which is quite nice. We've seen that a couple of times already in the session, these drivers making sure if they're not on a fast lap, they are actually getting out of each other's way and letting the fast drivers through. So respectful early in the first qualifying.
Yeah, and then the only other real change we've seen is Anto has shifted down from 4th to 5th. I believe it was Darren Lobb just slightly improving his time. He went from 5th to 4th, so just a little bit of a switcheroo there. So, I mean, you're still pretty happy with the top 5 kind of position, but like I said, you know, every racer in front of you can just be such a liability. But as we are nearing the end of qualifying here, racers are going to be looking to just clean up their last laps here. And we can see, yes, it does look like, yeah, we're going to be heading up a bit of overtime here just for the racers to finish their last lap. Oh, they got like 2.5 minutes. That's not too bad to wrap it all up.
Yeah, anyone who is on a flying lap at the moment is going to have time to finish that lap and get back across the line. So this is their last chance to push and try and gain a few spots right in the dying seconds. Is anyone flying around there? We see Amish appears to be on a flying lap, so he's going to try and improve from 18th spot. See if he can do much with it. You can see how close the times are. I love the graphic we've got on the side here. Top 15 drivers, all within a second of each other. So it is just as competitive as I hoped based on their qualifying to get into the tournament. Now they're qualifying in the actual tournament, ahead of the race.
It also
crosses the line.
Yeah, I mean, it also just goes to show how consistent a lot of these races are. You know, getting a lot of these times, you know, within those second margins, which is pretty excellent to see. And yeah, like we say, you know, a few races just finishing up. Robert Henry's finishing up his last lap as well. And yeah, there should be, I don't believe there's too many other races. Yeah, I don't think Hamish Cleveland's going to finish his lap, unfortunately. Actually, might just have just enough time if he times it well. So I mean, maybe he will, which would push him up a little further. Where is he sitting? He's sitting, yeah, like 18th, 19th, I think, on the grid. So he would quite like to finish a little bit better, but yeah, I don't think he's going to be looking at anything any better than that. So that's essentially going to be our grid there. So Monkey Matt, I mean, look, short of any surprises here in the last cleanup laps, I mean, you're pretty happy with these sort of things? Are we a little sad for any races? Like, would you expect, you know, like Ewan Baker, like you mentioned, like he could have been a little bit higher for some of the expectations we had?
Yeah, I think he'll want to be in there, but he is in the top 10. He is in that fight, so it's a long race, 19 laps. He can come back through. We know he's got the racecraft to try and keep pushing forward, but we did actually see that those early laps, early in the session, for quite a few of the drivers were the best ones. So those that got out there and were on it straight away, they've done their warm-up. It seems to prove a little bit of a difference there. Some of the drivers coming in later in the session, sort of warming up, not quite to the top. We saw the likes of Ewan and Michael Healy, who also qualified into the tournament quite well. He was down in 10th, I think. So yeah, I mean, it's still close throughout the whole field. And like I say, turn 1, lap 1, it's going to be interesting. Everyone's going to try and keep it clean, I'm sure, get around the field, because yeah, damage can be a real problem in iRacing.
Yeah, I mean, you'd hope it's a little bit clean, but again, like I said, you know, I'm a bit mean. I always hope for a little bit of mess, but I'm sure, yeah, the racers will certainly be looking out for each other. The sportsmanship is definitely there in the sim racing community. But before we, you know, get into the actual race here, before we move on to the track for Daytona and those 19 laps of glorious action, we're going to be going to a short break. But when we return, we'll get the racers on the grid and get them straight onto the track.
This is the world's premier online racing simulation. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat from your home computer with the most realistic online motorsports experience you'll find anywhere. Race virtually in the world's biggest events with officially licensed series, cars, and tracks. From the high banks of Daytona to the blistering speeds of Indianapolis, the dirt of Eldora to the world's most legendary road courses. It's all here, and with more than 180,000 people just like you already driving, you'll always have someone to race. Ready to get behind the wheel? Sign up at iRacing.com to get started.
My world is my storytelling.
My world is diverse. Our world.
My world is astrophysics. It's always been a dream of mine.
I don't know what my career pathway will be.
I approach architecture from the point of view of my culture.
I want to contribute to my people.
It's a way I can give back. I want to change the perception of engineers.
I want to take my tohu home when I graduate.
Right now, it's about me.
And this is my chapter.
Welcome everyone, welcome back to the Samsung iRacing NZ Championship. My name is Matt Smite Ross and we've just finished our qualifying race and I'm here to break everything down with you at the Samsung Odyssey Action Arc Station. We've got all the times listed up, so let's take a look at how some of the drivers did today. Now, as you can see, some of the times were pretty standard. We didn't really move too far apart from each other. Times ranged from 146 or low 145s all the way down to 147. So just under 2 seconds apart for each of these drivers. Now, you'll recognize a lot of the names near the top. Timothy Vaughan, Hayden Kirk, Ben A. Stewart, all qualifying quite high. A name as well that we mentioned that is a little further down was Antal, who qualified in the top 5, took a few laps to get there, but did manage to get that one locked in. Now, Ewan Baker is another one that we did predict to qualify a little bit higher, did crack that top 8, but in a few of the later laps now did pretty well. Now, as we see a lot of these qualifying times all locked in and the races ready to go on to Daytona, Monkey Matt, I want you to bring us back into the track as the races get ready in the grid.
If you've just tuned in and now, you have great timing because we are lining up, getting ourselves ready for race number 1 of the series in the Samsung iRacing NZ Cup. And race number 1, it is Daytona International Speedway. We are, of course, at the road course. Such a famous circuit. We've got part of the oval. It's got some high speed sections. And then we've also got the infield tight, twisty hairpins. We're going to take a look at the grid order, see how these drivers line up ready for race number 1. It is Nathan Anderson who set that qualifying time early on. He is on pole ahead of Hugo Allen, and then Dylan Jordan in third. Darren Lobbs on row number 2. So those top drivers definitely to watch out for. Antal Rafael Sabo in 5th position. He's going to have the inside line ready for turn number 1. Further down the grid, we're keeping an eye on Michael Healy. He came into this competition as one of the top drivers. Matt Stevens in behind him, going to be a fierce competitor as well in 12th position. Henry in 13th, Carl, Robert, and Timothy Vaughan in 16th position with the 146.6. So that's just about a second off the top drivers. That's how close this field is, and it's getting me excited, ready to go racing. But first, we're going to look through the grid. 17th, Brad Hamish in 18th, Mandela Pluck in 19th, Brody Scott, Enrico in 21st, and Hayden rounding out the field in 22nd. You can see the grid lining up as they are on the banked corner, ready to go. And this is going to be an interesting start. Smite, how do you rate this one?
Look, I'm always very excited for the start of the race. It's one of my favorite parts of it because it always gets messy. You've got 24 races. They might be some of the best in the country, but hey, someone's going to get greedy. I can feel it. It's the first track. They want to push their limits, and let's go straight onto that one as we move into it. So, not too much of a tight turn at the moment, so people are going to be feeling out where they're going to be able to squeeze in a little bit of extra space. But look at these drivers, Matt. I mean, they're getting a little bit close to each other, but still a good amount of space given to each other. A lot of respect.
Yeah, tight 2-1, but all the front drivers have made it through there. I saw a couple of incidents in the midfield further back, but Nathan Anderson getting a nice clean lead. You can see his wide line on the exit there, trying to carry the speed ahead of Dylan, who got the jump over Hugo, and Hugo now under pressure as Antal Rafael is trying to move up spots, but through the fast left-hander it gets tight, and they have to try and figure out a single file to get through there. And already we're seeing moves down into the hairpin first lap, of course. Great opportunity to try and make up spots early on.
Oh man, and this is where you really would be stoked if you're Nathan Anderson. You can already see him zooming far ahead of everyone else. So he's already pretty happy with this, but everyone else wants to break away from that pack. The risk and just the fact that you have to worry about constantly other races around you is just a real pain. Here in 8th place, Brad Jessen wanting to squeeze on by, but I mean, this section of the track just not really gonna happen for him. So gonna have to rely on the slipstream, maybe find something on the next turn somewhere. I mean, Matt, if you're racing this, where are you looking to overtake?
This was actually one of the spots I was thinking about pre-race, but they've all gone reasonably calmly there through the bus stop in single file at the moment. It's all about getting to the better exit out of some of these corners. So down to the next corner as well, we're going to head back, complete the first lap, head back down into turn number 1, and that's where in these Porsche cars the braking can be so crucial, can really make the difference. Particularly turn 1, you're turning and trying to brake and slow the car. So after this long straight though, this is where they're just flat out, long straight down towards turn number 1. We're looking through that midfield battle, so close, but there's a bit of a gap now opened up from the leaders. So there might have been an incident there. As we see the moves go, down the inside, Crim Insurance, that's Matt Stevens, and he's got the job done.
Yeah, really squeezing on through and getting rewarded for it as well. So yeah, you can see just the split time is getting a little bit wider for some of these drivers, but also quite close for a lot of them. As you can see, plenty of overtaking opportunities here. And again, this is why I love the early parts of the race so much, is that you just get these lovely little battles going on between a lot of the drivers, all trying to squeeze in through. And there's just so many other people on the track that even if you can make an overtake opportunity, there's just someone else in the way. So it's really quite a tough battle. And one small mistake, here, it could be here.
Going for the move, that's Ewan Baker on the inside, trying to get it done here, and I think he might get the exit. He has managed to squeeze him out to the outside, so past Brad Jessen, who's in the Brabham Racing livery, which looks good, and I think we're going to see Michael Healy trying to tuck up the inside here as well, get that slipstream, force Brad onto the outside line. This long straight though, it takes so long for this action to be over. Into the braking zone. Who's going to break the latest? It's still going to be side by side through the bus stop. Surely not. Onto the grass. Keep it under control.
Oh, Michael Healy
Oh, it's
manages to get his spot up ahead and rewarded for a bit of that action, but holding his line very strong. One extra spot up. And it's those little bits that really count here, but still so many people behind him who all are hungry for that overtake as well. But, oh man, if you're Ewan Baker, you're pretty stoked with being able to get out of that one alive. And there's a lot of people behind you, but you've got just enough of that gap to keep them at bay.
Yeah, look at that angry packet into turn number 1. Oh, it is all on in the midfield. Side by side through turn number 1. Oh, can they keep it clean through there? It looks reasonably clean now through the chicane. They still haven't sorted themselves out.
Yeah, I think I saw a little bit of wobblies back there, but perhaps they sorted themselves out. I don't see anything crazy on the split time, so they'll be all right. But, oh man, this is still really rather tight. Not that many opportunities to pass. And like you said, the slipstreams, the long straights, it makes you wait with bated breath to see who's going to be taking the action, who's going to be breaking the latest. Henry Thomas Kircher trying to maybe see where he can pick up an opportunity. A few people around behind him as well looking to do the same exact thing. Carl Sampson, Robert Henrys as well. Oh, we might get a little opportunity here. It's so close to each other on some of these turns.
The confidence in the other driver to be able to get that close and not have a collision, that these guys are giving each other a lot of respect, but not a lot of room. I'm loving it so far. We're seeing it seems to be through that first sector, a lot of action, although this could be a bus stop move here if he can get a good run. Henry Thomas up in behind Brad. Brad, who's dropped a lot of positions the last couple of laps, needs to get back into his rhythm, but holding the inside here is, we saw him go side by side through the bus stop previously. We know he's going to be brave in there and not going to back out of it. He hangs on to it again, but he hasn't got the best run on the exit.
Yeah,
but around the outside, pretty hard.
Oh, so close. You can just see him inching forwards, just trying to get a taste of an overtake here, but every time he's being forced onto the outside line. And yes, it looks like he may have got the slipstream speed boost here, but he's still going to be on the outside. It's enough to get maybe a look at the overtake, but side by side, this battle is going on for so long. Those long straights keeping them at bay, but looks like Brad will manage to get ahead. And no, still on the outside line. Is this where it happens, Matt?
Side by side the whole way through there. This is awesome.
Oh,
you can see, oh no, there's a little bit of contact. Oh, they bounced off each other, and I think that was Henry just giving a little bit of hip and shoulder saying, hey, I've earned this position, thank you very much. And Brad is just dropping down again. He has not had the race he would have been hoping for. Has he got a bit of steering problems there?
Yeah, I mean, he was
another little bit of a bump on the straight.
Yeah, punished pretty hard for that one. I mean, he put a lot of effort into it, and yeah, down he goes down the leaderboard. Brad, he's going to have to fight for the ability to get back up in there because he's still got a really crazy pack behind him, even the very end of the pack of the track. They're all so close and all hungry for overtaking.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, we've got a bit of drama there. Oh, Carl's. Oh, no, sorry. Who was that?
That was Henry.
Henry spinning. We saw him in that battle with Carl, and he's ended up backwards. So he's dropped right down to the back of the field, and that is tough to take. It is hard to catch back up in these. You know, we're racing in equal cars here. They're all on equal footing. They're all on equal setups as well, fixed setups race. So the only difference is the driver, and we know all these drivers top notch.
Yeah, and while we get it, maybe hopefully a little bit of breathing room here, is that we saw Henry as well as Nathan as well hitting up the pits just to recover a little bit. Is this going to be a factor, Matt? You talked about tyre wear before in qualifiers. Are you ever wanting to pit?
In these races, I don't think that's going to be the right option. The tyres should be able to last. They should have enough fuel, so that you're just going to lose too much time coming into the pits. But because we do have damage as well, when you do see that contact, that's when I think we'll see drivers having to come into the pits and recover, maybe try and repair. And I think maybe the head of this pack might be just struggling a little bit of a cork in the bottle situation as they're all close and fighting in this pack behind them.
Yeah, and that's going to make it so rough when, you know, the leader of the pack does eventually pull through. They're going to be so far beyond the next one that they want to overtake. I believe that, yeah, Robert Henry's at the front of this pack here. He's still 3 seconds behind Ewan Baker, so even if he does pull ahead, that's a long way to crack past the top 9. But I mean, you still want to be able to hold everyone behind you at bay because they're all hawks wanting to just snatch that position off you. I mean, even the qualifiers showed that these racers aren't messing around. They are really trying to push everything that they can get, and sometimes the other players are just going to be well, an obstacle on the road sometimes. I feel like they're really pushing the, how do I want to say this, the politeness that you can really get away with on the racing track.
Yeah, we have seen a few close moments already, and all this battling really has just opened up that gap, as you were talking about, to the front 9, and they've really been holding each other up a little bit, slowing each other down. That's why we're seeing this battle pack so close together, because the drivers behind are able to catch up, but it's costing them if they want to try and move forward. It's going to be difficult to try and get those top 9, as we're seeing a bit of a switch up at the front there. So we've got Dylan now in the lead. Have we lost Nathan? Nathan's just dropped down the order.
No, there he is, right at the top is leader, Nathan. I'm not sure what's going on with it. Yeah, he's possibly dropping in and out. Who knows? But for now, Dylan is sitting in there, perhaps just fighting along with it. I think it's a potential disconnect. Of course, the reality of sim racing is that can sometimes happen, along with the benefit of being able to play from anywhere in the world. But hopefully, it looks like he manages to connect back in. It looks like he is still retaining that leader position at the very least. So should be hopefully no worries at the end of the day. But keeping our eyes back on this pack here, Dylan Jordan, yeah, he's still trying to overtake. It's actually in the realms of possibility right now that Nathan could lose that leading spot, because Dylan is right on his tail. And even then, quite a chunky pack of racers right behind him too. Maybe even giving him a little nudge as well to say, hey, I'm here, I'm ready to try and go for that first place spot. I want those 24 points.
This is what we love to see. Yeah, absolutely. Every position counts. Every position means one more extra point towards that championship, towards that glory, and towards those cash prizes as well. As we can see, trying to avoid the slipstream here. We talked about the long straights in the pre-show. This is one of them. And you can see the extra speed Dylan is able to carry. Just pulling in behind the driver in front. And this could be why we saw the graphic moving around, actually, is because these guys are battling, switching positions for the lead. And there you go, Dylan's got through on that occasion, into the bus stop, cleanly through, takes the lead of the race here on lap number 6.
Yeah, actually a really successful overtake, and with no one else in front, it does leave a lot less room for error, without anyone able to, maybe perhaps slow down, leave you less room. But Nathan, I mean, he's going to be able to do the same thing, Matt, on the slipstream. He's going to be able to get that speed boost, start looking at an overtake. Is there an opportunity for him to do it on the next turn here? We're going to find out.
There we go, it's the second long straight, the second part of the oval circuit here that we're on. And there's an opportunity to come back. No, quite, he's going to be forced on the outside into turn number 1. And behind them, they have drivers going side by side as well. But they all settle themselves down and get back into single file through the tight, twisty section. Nathan's trying to stick his nose out, go around the outside. What can he do there? It's going to be tough down at the hairpin. All the drivers trying to look for positions. Ansel actually moves up into 3rd. He managed to get the inside into the hairpin. Looking like that's the optimal line for sure, as Dylan again holds on to the lead, but nothing between them.
Yeah, Antel's actually been really fighting quite hard in the background there while we're watching Dylan and Nathan. He's been fighting against Hugo constantly, and not even just Hugo, right? You've got Ben and Brandon right on the tail as well, also being part of that battle. So Antel really going to be quite a contender, especially once we get back to these slipstreams on the long straights. He's going to be able to start looking at some of these overtakes, starting to go for those battles on those turns. And yeah, as you can see, he is right up with his nose pressed up against Nathan. He's really going to start being able to contest himself, and this could actually leave Dylan himself a really good chance to shoot ahead and retain a good lead. Look at how close these two are.
I wonder if he's just trying to give him a little bit of push along there, just nudge him forward, because, and late braking in the background as well. 4th place gets into the picture. But it definitely seems like Ansel is the driver with the momentum at the moment. He made that overtake on Hugo on the last lap and is so quickly up onto the back of 2nd place, up onto the back of Nathan here, looking to try and go forward. You can see they're probably mates. They're driving both in the MRP liveries there, so all those drivers 2nd, 3rd, and 4th at the moment, actually. So they might have worked out some tricks, done some training together to try and improve their speed here, and they've definitely figured something out, because they have pace in the first half of this race.
Yeah, you're telling me it's not just the MCP livery? I mean, I was thinking this is the magic of that. No, it's all down to the talent of these races.
Around the outside.
Look at that, yes. Ben Stewart trying to push past Hugo, but pushed back a little bit, denied. But, I mean, it's not just Ben Stewart. Look at everyone. No, it is Ben Stewart. He's going for another go.
Deep on the brakes, goes around the outside, but can't carry the momentum through the corner. It's tough to do around the outside, but he is being bold. He knows he's got some pace there, ready to exploit if he can try and get the move done. Hugo's having none of it. He's already lost a couple of spaces in the last couple of laps. He doesn't want to lose anymore.
Look at the first two as well. Nathan again pushing his luck here, trying to see if he can get by Dylan once more. Really wants to get that top spot back again, get that 24 points. He's not going to be happy with settling for 23. I mean, I can imagine why you've been in the lead for so long, but he might have to worry about Antal more than Dylan right now. I mean, he's got to fend him off. And again, every time that battle happens, Dylan's going to get that little bit of air, little bit of extra speed to move on. Perhaps Antal grabbing the slipstream here again. We'll have another opportunity here. I'm not sure if Nathan is going to be able to grab his. No, it looks like he is. He's getting a slipstream of his own. The opportunity is here, but neither of them really got enough of a boost with the slipstream to overtake. So it's going to be back to another straight to maybe try again.
You can see it seems like Antal's getting a good run out of these corners onto the straights, but I wonder if he's just not necessarily wanting to go for a dive at this point of the race. He's just happy to sit there and wait for the right opportunity to come his way, wait for maybe a little bit of a mistake from the driver in front, although he's going to have to defend here as they go 2 by 2 now around the left-hander, and we're getting towards turn number 1. Are they going to try and make it 3 wide? Surely not.
It's almost going 4 wide, mate. I mean, Hugo and Antal both getting in there too. They're really keen to just snap up there. And again, like I really want to reiterate how close all the other drivers are behind them too. You've got another 4 just barely a fifth of a second behind them too, all ready to snap it up. Their slipstream again giving them so much opportunities to constantly go for these overtakes in some of these tighter turns later on. But yeah, those top 3, I think they've now managed to pull ahead just enough. Antal slightly, ever so slightly behind, but again, just easily able to catch up there and still continue to contest with a few of these later breaks. That's a little bit, I feel like that was almost contact there, just barely, but it's a bit of a gentle touch.
Yeah, they're so, I guess, trusting of all the other drivers around them. They can see exactly, they've all got very similar braking markers. They know just how close they can push it to get right up next to the driver, but without making contact. This is absolutely cracking at the front of the field. This is what we hoped for, and it is producing in race number 1.
Yeah, I mean, Daytona, what a track here in the beautiful conditions as well, just letting these races absolutely run wild here. Another opportunity by Nathan, slows down. I think he was, you saw how much he was pushing his luck there, but maybe perhaps again, looking to just squeeze on something here, maybe able to try and get the outside track, but will just want to grab that slipstream burst, of course. Again, I feel these opportunities there constantly there, but
he's so close. You can see he carries the extra momentum, but because they're just heading into that slight left-handed corner, in order to sort of get alongside, he has to go up the banking and take that longer line, which he doesn't really want to do. It's going to lose him time by doing that. So he's just so close, but unable to find a spot to do it, continuing to apply that pressure. And has he got a little switchback here? Lovely little move there. He's got alongside. Is this going to be enough to carry the momentum on the exit? Side by side now down to the hairpin. He's going to have to go around the outside. Nathan trying to get his lead back, but he just can't do it on the outside. As Hugo sits his car up the inside of Antal, is he going to make a move? They're side by side for third now as well. This battle pack is just continuing corner after corner. I'm loving every moment of it. They have to settle themselves down though for that fast left-hander.
Yeah, but I mean, this just leaves so much chance throughout a lot of these laps, right? There's still another 9 laps to go here, and these drivers have been neck and neck, side by side occasionally, like you've been saying, almost the entire way. So they've absolutely caught up to each other, always constantly testing each other, saying, hey, look, the moment you slip up, I'm there. I'm here to steal one of your points, shove you back a little further down the leaderboard, just to lock in that championship for myself, wanting to be the Samsung iRacing NZ champion at the end of these 4 weeks. But at the end of the day, Dylan, he still does retain that lead no matter what Nathan tries to do. It's always on the outside track at the very end of the last turn. Another go at it, but I still don't think he's going to be able to get anything on Dylan for the next few turns.
This is what we've seen the last few laps. Again, he gets the run out of the bus stop, but he doesn't want to, he can't really go up to that high side. He's not going to have the momentum up there. So he just has to sit there waiting in behind, waiting for the straightaway to come, try and find a spot to do it. While these guys are battling, of course, there's still battles through the pack. Ewan Baker dropped off the front group a little bit, but Matt Stevens emerging from the lead of that battle pack we were watching early on in the race, and he's actually managed to close the gap up as well ahead of him. So he's got some pace in the mid-phase of this race.
Yeah, I mean, look at this battle at the front wasn't so interesting and could drop at a hair's notice. I'd love to see that, but maybe a little bit later on. Matt Stevens contesting, but here Nathan pushing his luck again, but maybe not so much luck, but again, trust in the other drivers. Antal again, I mean, it's the same sort of deal. You screw up for a moment, you give him even an inch, he'll take absolutely a mile and then never ever let you go by. I mean, Nathan, he's been learning that lesson for,
a little
5
bit
or
deep
so
there.
laps.
Nathan went deep and straight away, one little mistake. Antal has slipped right on through and moved up to second place. So that's what he was waiting for. We saw him sort of being patient here for the last couple of laps, and a little mistake is Nathan applying that pressure lap after lap after lap. No easy feat when they're carrying this much speed around the track. And one corner, that's all it takes. He just drifted a little bit wide, left the door open.
And look at how rewarded he is for it. He's managed to pull very far ahead of the pack. Now able to contest Dylan, who himself got his own little gap, but it may take Antal about half a lap or so to catch up. Nathan is going to have to work pretty hard because he's got Hugo, Ben, even Brandon hot on his tail, who haven't been battling quite as much. But speaking of battling, Antal's having to go with it.
We saw how fast he caught up early on. You said it might take half a lap to catch up. No, says Antal Rafael Starbo. He says, I'm just going to catch up in 2 corners through the bus stop. That's all I need. Now he's on the outside though, so tricky position to be in. You can see he was much more willing to go straight up to the outside, unlike we saw Nathan doing. But into turn number 1, slots back in and takes the inside line. Is he going to try and cross back? Not really enough room to do it. So sitting in second at the moment. All over the back of the car in front. He's going to have to go the long way around. Round the outside. Can we see it done? He's trying all the same moves that we saw Nathan doing for the last few laps. Is there going to be any sort of different result? Oh, he's going to have to watch his back as well because Nathan wants that spot back and he's right there.
Yeah, he's ending up quite wide on some of these attempts as well, and that's where Nathan could look for a little sneaky way back in. It's almost how he himself lost his own second place position. So Antal, he's going to have to be careful. Dylan is no easy beast to tame here on Daytona. Trying to find his moment, but again, I feel like Antal, if anyone can do it, it's going to be him here, as he's moved so far up the pack throughout pretty much the majority of this race. Dylan, I mean, he's holding the beast back for now, and does only have 7 laps to go to be able to do it, but that's 7 laps of having Antal right up there with his nose right behind you, ready to pounce at any moment. You saw him do it to Nathan, and he'll do it to you as well. So Dylan needs to hold strong on this pressure.
Yeah, I think we should mention that actually. Dylan has been holding strong. He has been under pressure ever since he made that move back at number 6, I think it was. He has been under pressure the entire time, but he has been placing his car exactly where he needs to, not making any sort of mistakes. So far, able to hold off the onslaught. Is now second and third, going to run side by side.
Ben Stewart.
Oh no, we're seeing...
Antal?
Did we see Antal? He had a problem.
Antal went to the pits. Oh no, okay, we'll have
There might be a drama.
Yeah, we'll have to get a little bit of more information on that as we come in, because that is devastating for Antal to have to pit at that moment. Like we said, not something you want to be doing in this race. You've got enough gear to get through it all, but that leaves Nathan a real shot at getting back onto Dylan. But more importantly, Ben Stewart rocketing up the track as well. He's looking for his own go at it as well. He's been in the background for this entire battle, and every so often you see him poke his nose out, but here he is now, a real shot, top 3, and could even contest even that first place.
Yeah, he's coming on strong towards the back end of this race. He managed to get the move done on Hugo as there was drama unfolding, a bit of back and forth action in front of him. He got up there and now claiming that extra spot, putting all sorts of pressure on Nathan. Nathan has had a full-on race here in race number 1. He's been attacking, he's been attacked, and now he's trying to do both at the same time. Actually, he wants to go forward, but he also needs to keep eyes in the back of his head, because here comes Ben in that blue retreat Porsche.
Antal suffering a drive-through penalty. I mean, tell us about that, Monkey Man. I mean, what could he have done to have such a devastating punishment?
Yeah, so of course in iRacing there are in-game sort of monitoring going on, so they do have track limits. They need to make sure they stay within the white lines and above that yellow line, crucially on this left-hander. is one of the track limits, so they can pick up incident points. We call them in iRacing. You pick up incident points if you go off the track or if you make contact with other drivers. So we saw a little bit of a dent on the front of this car. I wonder if he picked up some incidents from that. And if you pick up 15 incident points throughout the race, you'll get the drive-through penalty. And I suspect that might be what's happened to Antal there. So devastating for him, but this race at the front has not suffered from losing Antal at all. This is still all go.
Oh yeah, we're still loving it. I mean, yeah, shame for Antal, but Ben Stewart especially being hugely benefited here as he's actually managed to snag that second spot on a few of these turns. Can he hold on to it?
Might have been contact there. He got very loose on the exit, and that's going to give an opportunity back to Nathan, I think. Going to try and go alongside. Oh, I managed to squeeze through just about side by side to the right hander. That's a tough spot to do it. Looks like. Is that?
Oh, Nathan, no.
Oh, no. Oh, no spinning. There's contact between them as they slow through the hairpin. And oh, that is some top drivers there who are going to lose out massively.
Not Dylan Jordan, though, who managed to stay well ahead of everyone, but Brandon is sticking ahead. Darren, Michael Healy as well, all racing up, but nowhere near the leader of the pack, Dylan Jordan, is going to be, at least himself, very stoked about that. But Brandon now, I mean, as long as he's not involved in a lot of that contact, not going to be penalized himself for it. Didn't quite see exactly who was responsible for what, but these two races here, Brandon and Darren, actually, now they're seeing their own moments and they're going to have their own battles.
Yeah, that has taken out a lot of that lead group, actually, and opened the door here for Dylan to just pull away. So, I mean, he might be happy looking at his mirrors, but there's going to be some upset drivers at the end of this race. And I wonder if we might see any investigation for that one.
Oh, surely. That was a crushing penalty for a lot of races there for essentially someone else's problem. But for now, we're going to have to get that fed to us a little bit later as Dylan Jordan, he'll retain the lead, but Brandon and Darren, it's going to be the battle of these two for second place here. Brandon sticking ahead just for now. Michael Healy as well, trying to get involved on this one too. But for now, I think, yeah, Brandon, he's solidly got it, but that doesn't mean that the positions behind him are locked in at all. Michael Healy,
he started this race in 10th position, and he has just been patiently working his way forward. It's come his way a little bit with that accident, but to be in the right place at the right time, now sitting in third after that move, great drive from him. He'll be happy with that. And it's fallen into the lap of Brandon a little bit there as well. He was towards the back of that front group before that drama all unfolded, but sitting in second place, can he hang on now? 5 laps to go. Just going to be putting the head down because in the background you can see plenty of fast drivers want to get amongst it and want to claim these spots as well.
Yeah, and even if you look down the pack, right, you go all the way down to the top 7, and then maybe there's a small gap with Robert. Henry's a little bit further, but even that is about half a second. So there is still plenty of opportunities for a good number of races to try and go for any kind of contest, especially at the smallest sign of weakness on any of these tight turns, especially after the slipstream. Everyone in that top 7, top 8 even, should be within slipstream range on a lot of these long straights again, even the curves, as of course there's still 5 laps to go. There are a good handful of opportunities for anyone to come in and maybe not get that first place, but even second place still up for grabs. That 23 points, still a lot to go home with.
Yeah, this is where calm heads are required, because even if you have a little bit of drama in the race, every point, every position is an extra point in the championship, and we are only at race number 1 out of 8. So there's plenty of time in the future to try and come back and get some good results later on. If they can just gain a few more spots, that's going to help them in the long term, even if they are frustrated at the position they're in at the moment. These drivers here probably not so frustrated because they are still battling towards the front of the field. We've seen Dylan just drive off into the distance, but second place, still all to play for. Brandon holding on at the moment, and we can see, showing the nose a little bit from Michael Healy. He's clearly stating his intentions. He wants to get in the mind of Brandon, try and put him off if he can.
I mean, why wouldn't you, right? May as well go ahead, try your luck. You're up a lot further than you were looking at previously before. Why not go for gold? Or in this case, I suppose, the silver. But, I mean, hey, look, for him, it may as well be gold from how far behind he was before, along with a lot of these races here in the top 5, top 6. Man, you got a feel for some of the other ones who got shoved all the way back, but yeah, I mean, these guys, they've got to be loving it, like you said. For us, though, I mean, these battles are a little less tight. I mean, I'm not sure that a lot of these guys are content to go for some of these more risky maneuvers. I mean, maybe after what they saw earlier, that might be the wise option. Maybe you just take what you can get here. But I imagine someone's got to be hungry.
Yeah, oh, as we see a little bit wide, they're losing spots there up on the outside. Who was that? Is that
Michael Healy?
On board with Hugo. Is that Michael dropping spots?
Yeah.
He has had some dramas there.
He may have had a penalty of his own. I guess we'll get some information on that. But yeah, he's just falling back, letting everyone go by, dropping down to 8th position. So
oh, the twists and turns in this race, I tell you, it's hard to keep up with.
Yeah.
So there's been a few dramas with drivers dropping back. Michael Healy, the latest of them. He seems to have carried on though, so I wonder what's happened there, if he's just made a real big mistake on the exit of the corner and it's cost him the whole way down the straight.
I mean, that was a pretty big cost. I mean, for a lot of the portion, he was just simply going straight. That would be a huge error for that to happen. But regardless, I think someone I want to point out, Ewan Baker now able to snag into 4th position here, and with a real shot at actually contesting if he wants to. Only 3 laps to go, but that could be an opportunity for him. I think we're pretty safe in saying Dylan Jordan is pretty happy to hold on to a spot and pretty much locked it in, but we've just had confirmation Michael Healy penalty is the reason for him dropping back.
Okay, Michael Healy. So a few penalties proving crucial. You need to make sure you stay within the lines and stay
and for track limits.
Yeah, so going off the track costing him. We saw that early on from Ansel as well, having some trouble with incidence points, but track limits specifically there. So yeah, you do have to be on your game. And you can see these drivers are pushing to the limit and they want to make the most of this track and get everything out of it. But if you go over too far, it can come back to bite you big time.
Oh, Brandon
Darren
and Darren.
actually has made the Brandon here.
Yeah, I mean, these guys have been going at it for a little while. We're actually getting some good battles from these two finally. When they're really going to start contesting, but does Brandon continue on the outside track and really go for it? No, I think he's going to fall back behind, not really go too hard for it, but maybe a little bit wide here.
Oh, yes, he's round the outside. Can he get it done there? No, a little bit too deep. It looked like he was going to back off, but then maybe lifted off the brakes and just sent it. Didn't work out, and that's going to open the door. That's Ewan, I think, on the outside. He's been moving up places throughout the race, and it was looking like he was a little bit off the pace early on, but now right in the thick of the battle. Oh no, there's more contacts! Oh, and they've taken each other out.
No,
both drivers off into the fence.
Was that Ewan? I think it was. Yeah, Ewan in the blue, all the way sent off the track. Devastating. With only 2 laps to go, there wasn't much left, but Darren, Brandon still getting to have their own little battle here. Matt Stevens now actually getting to start maybe having a look on the inside. Does have 2 competitors right behind him, and Robert and Michael Healy, who has caught back up after that penalty. So he's still in it for perhaps a little bit more of a go, 1 or 2 places in these last few laps. But these gaps are really starting to widen now. We might be looking at our final positions here, Monkey Matt.
I just can't believe how much action and drama we've had in this race. It just keeps twisting and turning the whole way through. Now we've got Matt Stevens, who started quite a long way down the order. He's sitting in 4th position, just been quietly going about his race. I did mention him early on. He was closing the gap to the drivers in front of him, so he's got the speed. He just was out of position at start, and now he's catching up to the podium positions.
And the real winner here has to be Dylan Jordan. I mean, quite literally as well, unless something crazy happens. But he has been able to just drive ahead and only care about that drama in his wing mirror, just checking it out behind him, eating popcorn and a little bit of a munch as he is going to be looking to go onto his own final lap here, short of a miracle from some of these races behind him. I don't think he's going to be losing that spot. Maybe Darren and Brandon get one final battle here. Maybe even Matt Stevens pokes his head in, like you said, after just consistently driving up. But look at the gap there. 5 races quite close together, but Dylan far too far ahead.
Yeah, I think Dylan's just going to be going about his work, giving himself a little bit more margin for error as we see him on screen there. He looks comfortable, doesn't he? He looks calm. He did the work early on to get the pass done, get into the lead, and held off with a lot of pressure, but Now he's got a lot more space, a lot more easier job here on the final lap. He can hold on to it, but behind him, it's still close. It's all to play for second place. And on the final lap, are we going to see any last big dives? Is anyone going to send it? Try and claim that extra point?
Surely not at this point. I mean, they've seen what happens when people have been pushing their luck, punishments, crashes. Why would you risk it right now? You could take your 22, 23 points and just leave it at that, rather than risking it all and going down to something like 10 points or even worse. So, yeah, I mean, we saw the look on Dylan's face, all tension, all pressure, kind of gone. I mean, he's just pretty stoked. It looked like he was on a Sunday afternoon drive. And, I mean, honestly, it quite looks like it here as well, where he just does not have to worry at all. He's going to be absolutely loving it here. Of course, he earned his position. No one can say that any drama lost him any places, gained him any places. He can just take pride in the fact that he did this race clean, he did it well, and he's going to finish it off in first place.
A little bit of a smile across the face as he crossed the line, but not much celebration there. He's just happy that he managed to close it off and avoid the drama, I think. And now I'm sure they're going to be switching mindset, thinking about race number 2 that we have coming up later on. But it was Dylan across the line in the lead. Congratulations to him. And then further behind, Brendan, Darren, Matt Stevens moving up a long way through the field. Robert and Michael Healy, after that penalty, still coming home in 6th. So he's still, you know, a respectable result.
Yeah, I think Michael Healy can be okay with that. I mean, yeah, you're going to be gutted about the penalty, but hey, look, you push your luck. Sometimes that's going to happen, and to still stick by on 6th place, especially after everything else that happened, and he managed to avoid all of that, I think he can be okay with that. But that does wrap up for the race there. I mean, a few more will be locking in their positions as we see the final results. Yeah, Dylan Jordan, like you said, going to be looking towards the next race. He knows there are some real battlers there who will contest his first place, but for now, he's pretty happy with how this race turned out. But as you go a little bit further down, we stopped at Michael Healy, but Brad Jessen, Timothy Vaughan, Carl Sampson, Brad Vibra, I mean, these guys we didn't really get too much of a look at during that short of a few of the first laps, where we really had like a great middle of the pack battle early on.
Yeah, there was a middle of the pack battle early on, then we were focused on that lead battle for most of that race because it was so exciting at the front, but I'm sure there was battles going on through the field as well. And I think a lot of these drivers who maybe qualified a little bit lower, maybe weren't expected to be at the front, have scored a lot of points in the first race because of those dramas that we did see some of the drivers further back. So I think those guys aiming at the top of the championship might be satisfied that they've picked up extra points ahead of some of their rivals.
Yeah, another one I want to point out as well was Ewan Baker. I mean, we saw him suffer a pretty rough one, but before we talk about that, let's talk about this man right here, Dylan Jordan, the very solid winner of race number 1 here, banking 24 points. Of course, he had to work really hard for it in the first half, but second half, Matt, I think he got to cruise on by. Like I said, Sunday afternoon drive for him at the end there, but 24 points, going to be locking that one in. So, I mean, Matt, I would ask, was there anything that surprised you out of that race? But, I mean, I think we'd be here all night if you answered all of that. Yeah. So, I mean, did you have a favorite dramatic moment during that fight? Which one was the best one for you?
Oh, I mean, there was plenty, right? There was a lot going on in that race. So much drama. I've tried to make some notes here, and there's like 3 different crashes that took place all in the front group, and then there's a couple of penalties from the front drivers as well that caused drama. But I think it's full credit to Dylan there. He started in 3rd, made a good start as well. They all got a clean getaway, which I thought maybe was going to be a sign of the race to come, but it unfolded later on. But Dylan stayed ahead of it, made the move for the lead at a good time as well to get ahead, and then the battle unfolded behind him. So full credit to him. We're going to see if he can repeat that in race number 2.
Speaking of race number 2, we're going to be heading to Laguna Seca after the short break. So guys, go get a little bit of a rest after that one. It was a bit rough, but in a few minutes, we'll be back with the qualifying rounds of Laguna Seca.
This is the world's premier online racing simulation. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat from your home computer with the most realistic online motorsports experience you'll find anywhere. Race virtually in the world's biggest events with officially licensed series, cars, and tracks. From the high banks of Daytona to the blistering speeds of Indianapolis, the dirt of Eldora to the world's most legendary road courses. It's all here, and with more than 180,000 people just like you already driving, you'll always have someone to race. Ready to get behind the wheel? Sign up at iRacing.com to get started.
My world is my storytelling.
My world is diverse. Our world.
My world is astrophysics. It's always been a dream of mine.
I don't know what my career pathway will be.
I approach architecture from the point of view of my culture.
I want to contribute to my people.
It's a way I can give back.
I want to change the perception of engineers.
I want to take my tohu home when I graduate.
Right now, it's about me.
And this is my chapter.
Kia ora everyone, and welcome back to the Samsung iRacing NZ Championship. My name is Matt Smite-Ross, and Monkey Matt joined me here for quite a wild ride, I've got to say, over on Daytona. But I mean, Matt, I already asked you what your favorite moments were, but I mean, if you were one of the racers on that, I mean, how are you feeling if you're one of the really affected racers, especially moving into another one tonight?
Yeah, iRacing with its damage on, that's a mode where I get very frustrated if I'm caught up in an incident. So for these guys, it's early on in the season, they need to sort of refresh in that quick break and think about the next race, think about ahead, focus on what they can do rather than what's done is done and they need to forget it.
All right, well, let's move on to the next one, going from Daytona to Laguna Seca here. Now, Monkey Matt, another American track coming into this one. It's a little bit shorter, so we're heading up to 25 laps. So tell me about this track. I mean, look, you said Daytona was going to be, quite long, a few tight turns here and there, but we saw what happened. Is the same thing going to happen here?
Yeah, this is definitely a bit more of a different style track here. We don't have those big long straights like we saw at Daytona, with just that one main straight down to turn number one. We do still have a tricky turn number one, of course, but then through the infield, tight and twisty. It's going to be interesting to see how much side-by-side does actually occur around this track, or whether they are going to have to follow each other a bit more. And then, of course, Laguna Seca, the famous corkscrew, the big dip down 6 stories, I believe it is, the elevation change. So, yeah, definitely a new challenge compared to Daytona.
All right, jumping into Laguna Seca here. Another bright sunny day, and man, looking at the sand, it looks like it's going to be quite hot as well on the track and those tires as well. Drivers going to be aware of that, but we are here in qualifying, everyone. The drivers have already started here, and they're a few minutes into it, 15 minutes in total to get their qualifying done, lock down the very best lap. Now, back on Daytona, we saw during qualifying that the drivers actually weren't giving that much space to each other, which you do commonly see during qualifying, is that, you know, especially on a track like Daytona where there is plenty of room to do so. Do you think maybe we'll see that here, or maybe people are a little bit more touchy after Daytona? They'll be a little more polite, give a little more space.
Yeah, I think a couple of the drivers will just be looking for their own space, trying to get their head in the game and, you know, just dial in with this track. Of course, they have just been racing around Daytona, so they do need to just have that quick switching between the two tracks and get back into the game. But we do have 15 minutes, so it's a bit of time where you can just sort of be on your own and focus a little bit. We don't have the slipstream, which I wonder if that's what they were trying to get in qualifying of Daytona, so we might see a bit more calmer and a bit more spread out, as it seems to be what we're looking at the moment, a bit more spread out.
Yeah, and talking about the slipstream, right, back in Daytona, was that a big reason that we saw so many tight battles there? I know we had a lot of races, but was the slipstream the main component of that, or could we see a similar amount of battles here on Laguna Seca?
I definitely think the slipstream was a factor in that previous race. We saw that the lead driver really struggled to pull away, even if they had the speed to make the overtaking and get ahead of the driver in front. That, you know, once we get to those straights, that driver behind them was able to pull back in and close up. So I think at Laguna Seca, it could potentially spread out a little bit, but we could still see some more crashes in the background. Bit of a spin. If you get out on that sand, it's really going to unsettle your car. So hopefully they're all on top of that getting into the race.
Yeah, so actually talk to me a little bit about the sand here. I mean, how much are you dipping your toes into it? Are you ever dipping your toes into it? Or is it actually far more devastating than hitting the grass back on Daytona?
Yeah, I think with Daytona, there was a few spots where there was a little bit of runoff, and that's where we saw drivers trying to push the track limits, shall we say, and seeing what they could get away with. But here with that sand, you don't want to be running out there too much. You can use the curves that we're seeing on board with Robert. Taking a look at Robert there, using all the curbs inside and outside the corners. That's a nice line that he's taking. But yeah, once you get out into that sand, that's where the car is just going to get real unsettled. Oh, he's managed to control it that time.
That's a pretty good outcome, considering what you were just talking about with the sand there. But yeah, good control from Robert Henry's. Taking a look over at the few times we've already got locked in here for qualifying, one name that I'm seeing right now is Ewan Baker. Got a pretty good time already and sitting there in second place. I can imagine after what happened on Daytona, he's going to be wanting to be as far up the grid as possible and just pull ahead as soon as he possibly can. Get all the nonsense behind him and hopefully get a really big gap as well, so he just does not have to worry about it. But we are seeing a few different names up there around the top 10, right? We didn't see much of Carl Sampson in Daytona. Also, dropped again, actually, Brad Wybrow. We didn't really see much of him. Again, there was like that early, middle of the pack kind of battle that was quite fun to watch for a little while, and a few of those names were in there, but maybe these guys will be able to stick their grid position this time. I mean, we haven't really finished qualifying yet. They may still slip down a little further.
Yeah, we haven't seen quite as many early quick times here in this qualifying. We saw at Daytona that straight out the gate, you know, the top three were sort of right on the pace. But this time, Matt Stevens just jumped up the top as you were talking there. So 1:23.6. So that's looking like, oh,
Brandon.
Yeah, more fast times coming in later in the session. Brandon jumps to the top.
Yeah, Brandon and Matt Stevens, both kind of front runners for not even just the first track, but also the competition as a whole, especially judging after how they went back on Daytona. So yeah, I can imagine Matt Stevens, yeah, he'll be wanting to do the same sort of thing. There wasn't a huge recipient of too much punishment coming out from that first one, and all the drama, but I mean, yeah, again, he'll definitely want to avoid it. One name that is missing to me is Antal, actually. I don't see him on the list anywhere, so perhaps maybe a little too emotional after that last one. Do you think maybe he dropped out? Oh no, there he is.
I'm questioning it actually, because he hasn't got a lap time. Yeah, he hasn't completed a lap, and they've had plenty of time. We're reaching the halfway point of the qualifying session, so you'd expect all these drivers, as we're seeing them come back into the pits, we talked about changing tyres to try and get a fresh set later on in the sessions, as all these drivers using all the road and some out of the last corner, try and get the most speed down the straight as you can. And we've just tuned into Antal as he finishes his lap. Oh, great camera work from our cameraman.
Oh, they know, and look at the time too. Yeah.
He's right up it and straight in.
I mean, look, I wouldn't have blamed him if he didn't want to go after that last one, but it's good to see him back on the track. And yeah, I mean, look, if you're a driver of this caliber, you're not going to let one little crash set you back, no matter how devastating it is. And you can also take a little solace in the fact that it happened to a lot of other people on different ones too. So yeah, he'll be all right coming back into this one, clearly with the second place qualifying time there. So pretty stoked on that one. I predict again, like he'll want to especially be reaching ahead of everyone as well, not really having to push his limits to, go over the track limits itself again. So yeah, he'll not be looking to play as risky, and with a qualifying time like that, he might not need to.
Yeah, absolutely. He qualified in 5th in the first race, so he had to kind of push to try and make up those positions and get forward. But so he's, I think, trying to push here in qualifying, so he doesn't have so much work to do in the race. And as you mentioned, he did pick up that penalty in race number 1, so he'll be thinking about the track limits, and that might just play in the back of his mind. It might, it's part of the mental game as well, of how much that affects you going into race number 2. If you leave too much room on the exit of a corner, the other drivers around it, it's so close between these drivers, the other drivers are going to capitalize and get past. So you do have to be pushing the whole way.
A few other names popping up now. One I wanted to look at again was Michael Healy, right? Had a brilliant recovery in the race previously, right? He did suffer a bit of that penalty, but managed to pull back up to a respectable top 8. And here he is again in the top 9 once more, but I don't really have too much doubt that he'll be able to, again, push his limits a little bit further, move on up further, also take advantage of any kind of shenanigans going on by the other drivers. So definitely an opportunistic racer, while also being somewhat consistent when he's not getting hit with the penalties, of course.
Yeah, absolutely. This is another one of the drivers that had dramas in race number 1, but he's shown plenty of speed. Hugo, as we cut away from him, pulling into the pits. But Ben Stewart actually now up top of the timing board.
Yeah, Ben.
So yeah, Anto's down to 4th as we got new drivers setting quick times, and they're close as anything between them.
Yeah, a lot of them. Wow, that is extremely close. Especially those top 2, right? Like 3 milliseconds between the 2 of them is so good. But yeah, Ben, I mean, look, again, that's 3 milliseconds gets you that top pole position, right? You're going to be stoked about that one, especially on a track like this. Another one that I was looking at before was Nathan, actually, who was a front runner in Daytona. Right now he's sitting in 13th for his qualifying position. It has a pretty decent opportunity. I mean, really not that far behind, even the very top spot. So has about 1 or 2, maybe 3 more laps, actually, with the overtime, could even go to 4, to get another opportunity to go for one of those top spots. I really think he'll want to, because he was giving such a good battle to Dylan for the first half of Daytona.
Ewan Bacon's just set the fastest time there, so he's gone 23.3, jumped up the leaderboard. So that is a great lap time there from him. And we saw him qualifying a little bit lower in the previous race, but managing to work through the field. So I wonder if maybe this track just suiting his style a little bit more, and maybe not suiting Nathan on the other hand. So just, the consistency across tracks is going to be so difficult. 8 different tracks in the season we've got here. So these drivers really going to have to put the work in each week to get up to speed across all the different countries and tracks that we go to.
And that is another thing to talk about, right? Because you're not just spreading your knowledge all across the place. It's what are you focusing on practicing for? Because you get 2 tracks per week. Are you splitting your practice 50-50? Are you focusing more on one track than the other? Are you focusing on your weaker track? I mean, talk to us about how you prepare for these events. You've raced in events where you've got 2 tracks a night or 2 tracks a week. What do you do? Do you split it 50-50?
Yeah, you definitely want to have a balance of both, and with the point system in this championship, same points for each race throughout the season, so you definitely want to be able to perform it at all the different tracks and have that consistency, but at the same time, first race of the season, you want to make sure you're familiar with that track. You want to make sure you're really comfortable at Daytona, so that's what I would have put a little bit of extra focus on, just to get settled into the rhythm before heading here to Laguna Seca. And I mean, a lot of these drivers, oh man, we are jumping around as Healy in second and Brandon setting an even faster time. So we're closing in towards the 122s. Brandon with 123.1, just 2 minutes less to go in the session.
Yeah, wow, that's really an impressive one there. Another one that was also gunning for a few of those front spots. He was in about third for quite a lot of the track there, always constantly gunning to see if he could maybe poke his nose in. Took advantage for a second or two and ended up a disaster. But of course, he was there for a lot of it. So another one to look out for, I'd say. I mean, look, there's so many races to look out for, and we can say that because almost half of this roster was sitting there in the top 4 at some point, just with everyone shuffling back at some point. So look, a lot of these guys have done super well. Someone we haven't really looked at much is Timothy Vaughan here, who has been, you know, a bit further towards the back, currently only number 13 in the qualifying, but this should put him middle of the pack, and if he can hold out through those battles, which he did in the first half of Daytona, maybe, again, advantage to be taken of any kind of messes that happen in the early laps, in the early turns.
Yeah, Timothy here didn't have the best qualifying in the first race, and he looks like he's going to be maybe just improving a few spots here for race number 2, but this is a top driver who's familiar with a lot of different sims and has competed in some competitions as well. He's actually the New Zealand Esports Rally New Zealand, sorry, I'm trying to get the name right, Esports Rally New Zealand champion. So he has, you know, pedigree behind him, he can perform, but I think maybe jumping into iRacing, not necessarily his biggest strength at the moment, but he's right amongst it, and he had to clean race in race number 1, and that proved to be crucial, so I suspect he'll be targeting another sort of clean and consistent race in race number 2.
Yeah, and look, that, you know, over the course of 4 weeks, 8 tracks, right, your consistency could actually keep you well ahead, maybe even get you into the prize money if different people are having these crashes, you know, week in, week out. You could just have that consistent result and actually sneak up in there in the leaderboard. Even if it's not the very top spot, you can still be there contesting a little bit of it. As the last call for qualifiers is coming out now, the drivers have just under 2 minutes to complete their laps here, and that should be enough time to get at least one more good go going in at it. And yeah, I mean, look, nothing's really changed. Oh, bump, all right. I guess he's not going again for another one.
I think that both these guys realised that the lap start, or maybe just interfering with each other actually. There are some drivers on the cooldown lap, some of them trying to push at the last minute to try and fit something in, fit that last lap in and see if they can gain some spots. But at the moment it's Brandon ahead of Hugo, who's just actually jumped in there. Hugo with a good lap after that incident in race number 1. Michael Healy, Ewan, so a lot of familiar names on the top of the order in the first race. Ben Stewart, Carl, and Dylan. Antal, early on he set that quite good lap, but hasn't been able to improve while some of the other drivers have. So he's sitting, been knocked back down to 8th.
Yeah, Hugo as well. I mean, he was not very much up there at all for, you know, the majority of this qualifying. So that last one, really sneaking in there. He's going to be absolutely stoked with that one. And yeah, I mean, I think it's really more punishing for the others who were, you know, a lot of them were at one point pole position. You know, you had Ewan Baker up there, Michael Healy, Ben, and of course Antal, who really suffered from just, I guess, the other races qualifying better later on during qualifiers. So really good numbers coming out of a lot of these guys. But as you can see, you know, this time, a lot of them coming in the later laps here, Matt.
Yeah, it really was spread out throughout the whole session, which was exciting for us to see as it was constantly changing there. But all of these drivers maybe, you know, adjusting from that previous track, getting in the game. And I wonder if maybe the track evolution as well, playing a little bit of a factor. It's quite sunny out there. Of course, we talked about how we haven't shared the track conditions ahead of the race. All of these drivers jumping in the lobby, seeing the track weather and track conditions for the first time. But it's clear it's dry, it'll be sticky, and they were going fast.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, a lot of them later on for sure getting into that qualifying position. But everyone, we've got our grid all sorted out. So while we get the drivers all ready to suit up for the real race ahead of us, we're going to go to a short break. And when we return, they'll be heading up to the race on Laguna Seca.
This is the world's premier online racing simulation. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat from your home computer with the most realistic online motorsports experience you'll find anywhere. Race virtually in the world's biggest events with officially licensed series, cars, and tracks. From the high banks of Daytona to the blistering speeds of Indianapolis, the dirt of Eldora to the world's most legendary road courses. It's all here, and with more than 180,000 people just like you already driving, you'll always have someone to race. Ready to get behind the wheel? Sign up at iRacing.com to get started.
My world is my storytelling.
My world is diverse.
Our world.
My world is astrophysics. It's always been a dream of mine.
I don't know what my career pathway will be.
I approach architecture from the point of view of my culture.
I want to contribute to my people.
It's a way I can give back.
I want to change the perception of engineers.
I want to take my tohu home when I graduate.
Right now, it's about me.
And this is my chapter.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Samsung iRacing New Zealand Championship. We're back here at the Samsung Odyssey Arc Action Station here to break down what we just saw at the qualifying of Laguna Seca, a track with curves almost as beautiful as the Odyssey Arc itself. Now, looking at the leaderboard here, we've seen quite a few good times coming out from these races, but a lot of the action happened early on, where we had races like Antal locking in their qualifying spot very early, but then very quickly overtaken as the laps went on. The qualifiers came in. We had races like Michael Healy trying to sneak in, Ewan Baker as well, another front runner back in Daytona. But now, moving into Laguna Seca, we had a few more races coming out on top. Hugo Allen had a bit of his go at it. Ben Stewart also jumping in there at the top as well. Dylan Jordan, the winner from Daytona, not quite able to lock in as high of a qualifying position on the grid, but still giving it a good go and maybe able to get out of there alive. But Daytona, it's a very dangerous track. You want to be early up on that grid. So races like Antal are going to have a little bit of a rough time there, falling a little further back, all the way down to 9th in the grid. We saw the middle of the grid was quite rough. So we'll have to see how the races shape up as we move on to Laguna Seca. Monkey Matt, we're moving on to one of the classic tracks here coming out of the USA. So let's take a look at the track as the races all get ready on the grid.
Yeah, we are lining up for the second race of the night, WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca. 25 laps here because, of course, it is a shorter lap length. And this track, a little bit different than the one we saw previously with that tight, twisty section, and, of course, the famous corkscrew section through there as well. So it's going to be all on, particularly in those opening laps. Again, I expect it to be action. But let's take a look at the grid as we have Brandon ahead of Hugo. Hugo qualifying in second spot in both races. Then Michael Healy and Ewan Baker, another couple of the names we've been talking about all night. They're on row number 2. We're trying to move forward. Ben Stewart and Carl Sampson in 5th and 6th, and then Dylan and Antal Rafael Sabo in 8th spot, trying to redeem himself after the previous race. Matt Stevens had a good result. Now he's qualified a little bit better here in 9th position. Robert Henry in 10th, then Darren, Brad, and two Brads next to each other there, the 12th and 13th, and then Timothy Ford in 14th. Can he quietly work his way forward again in this race? Nathan Anderson a bit further back, and then Hamish in 16th spot. And towards the back of the grid, Nicholas Lowndes, Henry Thomas Kircher, Hayden Kirk in 19th, and Enrico in 20th, M. Jabber in 21st, and Mandel Pluck 22nd ahead of Brody Scott, rounding out the field as they line up now for a grid start at Laguna Seca. Do you want to take us away, Smart?
Oh, Monkey Bat, I would love to. Laguna Seca, a beautiful track here. A little bit darker here today, but still very high temperatures going in. Brandon C. Dove heading up in pole position. Hugo Allen, Michael Healy right behind. And let's get going here. Turn 1 going to be always a disastrous one, or I'm always hoping so, for a lot of entertainment coming into it. But perhaps the race is a little bit more cautious here after Daytona. Laguna Seca will be a big test of them. Already a little bit of nose action going on, but so far everyone giving quite a lot of room, I must say.
Oh, they're going to go side by side through the right hand. Is he going to close them off on the exit? No, they're going to give each other space to get through there. So that was nice driving there for 3rd position. Ewan Baker making up the spot early on, but it was a great jump away from Brandon and a great camera angle we had to see everyone get off the line as well. The mid-pack, there was a bit of a difference between the starting there, but at the front, Brandon and Hugo, nice getaway, and they've opened up a little bit of a space now ahead of Ewan Baker and Ben Stewart, who's holding on to 4th. So lap number 1, and they all are again managing to get through reasonably cleanly, which is good to see.
Yeah, and you can see Antal not quite stoked with his 9th position in the grid, wanting to already start moving up. Already taken 1 position. I can imagine he's hungry for more as he's right up the nose. And look at all of these twists and turns, Monkey Matt, and already perhaps a few casualties.
Yeah, in the background we saw someone just go flying across the screen, so that might put a bit of an end to their race, I suspect, because that looked like it was a big one. But the front half of the field, oh, there's another driver off onto the stand. He managed to join.
Brad Wybrow, the man who went flying across the screen, like you just mentioned, unfortunately may just not be having a good time for the rest of this race if he even sticks around for that one. But yeah, as you were mentioning, Antal dropping back a position again, not quite happy with that one either himself. So a few gaps now starting to open up between the drivers, but definitely close enough for a lot of them to start challenging. And you can see Matt Stevens interested in taking Darren Lobb's 7th spot here. I reckon he can maybe give it a bit of a go here as some of these turns come up. They're close enough to go for it, Monkey Matt. So many mats.
Yeah, you can see that. Yeah, indeed. You can see that some of the front runners, just gaps opening up just a little bit more than we saw in the previous race. But yeah, we're looking at Matt Stevens trying to close in on the back of the drivers in front of him. But I think actually it's going to be Darren who's going to be taking a look at Dylan. Oh, except he puts, the driver behind him just puts the wheels off on the sand. And it always makes me hold my breath when I see that. It's so easy to turn it around, as we've already seen a couple of drivers do on that opening lap.
And the elevation changes as well. I mean, you just get so much momentum going down the hill on these incredibly tight turns as well. Really testing a lot of these races as well, because there's 25 laps for these guys to go through. So you're going to have to be consistently on point for a lot of them, because like we saw, disaster can strike at any moment, and 25 laps also very scary here. Did Hugo Allen set an even faster lap than qualifying? He got 1:23.0 something, I think, there. So again, like even faster there. So really good one coming out from him on that one, but still not quite able to take away the front runner spot from Brandon.
Yeah, the gap opened up a little bit, but you can see on that previous lap, Hugo is pushing. He wants to get in that fight for the lead and try and take the winners. Again, they're going side by side in places where I thought maybe they would have to go single file, as it's all a tight little battle here. Who's going to come out on top of this one?
Antal, inside track.
Around the outside, it's close.
It's still a side-by-side battle there, right behind Antal, who's happy to see the end of that one, but still has the sights set on further positions. Matt Stevens having to fend off who's that behind him. Dylan Jordan, the winner from Daytona, not someone you want right up behind you within those, trying to steal your position, especially on some of these dangerous turns here. Matt Stevens, he's going to have to hold the pressure here. It's not an easy battle for him. Antal in front of him as well.
Yeah, Dylan just got shuffled back a little bit there through some of those corners. He was sort of caught on the outside, and then a few drivers coming through one by one behind him. But this is the battle. Oh, a little bit of a mistake there. Antal getting wide, but recovers it. He doesn't want to do that too many times. We saw him picking up the incident points in the previous race. And just a reminder, if they do pick up 15 incident points, they will get a penalty. And 25 incident points, you will get disqualified. So if you've had that penalty, you really want to keep it within the lines after that. But again, the two MRP liveried cars close together on the track. They're beautiful liveries. You mentioned it in the last race, helping them get towards the front, but it actually, they all ended up, I think, having separate issues throughout the race. So they'll all be hoping they can go better in race number 2 here.
Yeah, maybe a little bit cursed, that one. I guess we'll have to see. Maybe it was actually Daytona that's the curse. Yeah, or maybe it's us. It's our fault. Thanks. But yes, we've had, I believe, like another penalty handed out as well to Robert. I think it was Robert Lane. Robert Henry's, I think, has a pit penalty again. So that's another one that's really getting rough on a lot of these drivers. Antal, though, speaking about rough, he's really given a rough time to the races in front of him. Darren also having to fend him off. Darren getting quite a good qualifying time and holding his position as well, surviving through a lot of these battles, but I think maybe that battle might be over. Antal starting to push his luck again, almost getting side by side, but no, there it is, the contact happens.
Oh, they're into each other.
I really want to hear the call on that one.
Yeah, Antal wanted to stick himself up the inside, but closing the door in front of him, there was no space there at the apex, and spun him around. The two teammates, and both in the MRP liveried cars, so I imagine there might be some words after the race there, as we did have a little pop-up there of a penalty.
Yeah, that was Robert Henry from a little bit earlier, getting the pit lane penalty. Extremely rough to have that one so early, but man, I wonder how, I mean, what do you think from what you saw? Antal, how involved was he in that contact, causing several races, a whole host of problems? Do you think he might even be punished for it?
Yeah, I wonder. It looked like he had done enough in the brakes to get up alongside there, but Dylan just closed the door a little bit, so I'm not sure how we're going to view that one. If I was Antal, I'd be a little bit annoyed at the driver in front, to be honest.
Yeah, because I don't think Antal really did anything wrong there. I think he managed to slide on by, but I guess we'll see as the race will continue. Antal, man, he would not be happy about that if he got punished for it. So we'll see as he continues on. But of course, more happens. Who's that one going to be? I think that was Brandon, actually.
From the lead.
Yeah, from the lead. I think from the pole position too in the grid. Another devastating one. Laguna Seca claiming many victims today, Monkey Matt.
Isn't it just? This is, oh man, you have to keep your wits about you to try and keep track of it all, don't you? There we get a look at Brandon, I believe, who's now down in the penalty. There's more drivers running into trouble. Oh my goodness, down in 19th. That is devastating. After such a great qualifying and a great start to the race as well. Really dropped off now.
All right, oh no, is that another one as Ben Stewart from first position takes the pit? Perhaps another penalty. I mean, we'll have to be told about this one. Here's Hayden Kirk. I mean, oh no, having a horrible time there. I don't even know what's a mistake or a penalty anymore, Maggie Matt. They're all being pushed all over the place. But look, let's take a breath and see who's out on top of it, because Ewan Baker now deservedly taking in that pole position there. But man, oh man, Hugo now starting to challenge him for it. Actually, Ben as well. Don't tell me it was another penalty.
Has Baker dropped out?
He's down to third.
As well, down to third now. So Hugo up into the lead. It's been a real mix-up at the top, back and forth. But as it stands, Hugo ahead of Ben, who's been quietly working away. Had a good run in race number 1 as well, but caught up in some drama. But been avoiding it so far to hold the second place. And then Michael Healy dropping off as well. So it was Ewan and Healy first and second at one point. But just up and down, he's keeping it clean. Easier said than done, it seems.
Yeah, according to every other racer in this track, and even Daytona as well.
Yeah.
Very, very hard to keep it solid for a lot of these guys. I mean, just with all the shenanigans going on. But like you mentioned, yeah, I reckon Ben Stewart, one of the more consistent ones, constantly poking in around third and fourth in Daytona. Definitely no stranger to the battles. Didn't take too many risks, which I kind of liked about it. I mean, yeah, I always like to see the overtake attempts, but on the same note, you know, seeing someone just consistently stay good, consistently get in those laps, and when they're not caught up in drama, stay very far up the field. So Ben, let's see if he can keep his head on for this track and not be the victim of any other shenanigans going on. But Ewan Baker on his tail, that can't be an easy one.
Yeah, and he's going to be going for it. He's being quick all throughout this competition, through the qualifying phase and through tonight's races. So he's right amongst it and wants to keep pushing forward. We're on lap 7 out of 25. Feels like we've had plenty more than that, but plenty, long time in this race to go. So some of these gaps opening up a little bit, but there is time to try and pull back and gain some more spots.
Yeah, mate, with all the drama that happened, Daytona felt like 2 tracks, to be honest. So much action going on with that one, and it looks like it's just continuing here on Laguna Seca. Oh man, all right, well, I'm looking a little bit further down the pack here, around 6 and 7, you've got Dylan and Carl looking for a bit of a battle. Dylan, the winner back on Daytona, has been mixed up in a bit of drama here on Laguna Seca, but has managed to recover quite a lot of it here, retaining the 6th position. But you look at the split, over 10 seconds away from that leader spot. Maybe he can pick up a few extra during this one, but he's not going to be hurting for the championship points after that first place. But if he wants to go for that $700 for first place at the end of the Cup, I reckon he needs to get a bit further up the field than just 6th.
Yeah, I think the championship's going to be quite mixed up at the moment. There's a few drivers who have managed to stay near the top, but just the back and forth of it all means that it's going to be a bit of up and down in the points at the end of the race again. So it'll be interesting to see how that shapes up, but we're focusing here on the race at Laguna Seca, and it is Carl Sampson in 7th place. One of the closer battles on the field at the moment, on the track at the moment.
Yeah, actually getting quite a few gaps here compared to what we had on Daytona, where we had drivers within a second, or half a second even, of each other for the majority of the race. So having just this one battle here, and even that is still a lot further than most of the battles were on Daytona, this might feel a little more comfortable now that we've got a few more gaps for a lot of the drivers. They're not really that worried about anyone getting too close. Any kind of battles you're getting into probably only going to have 2, maybe 3 drivers involved, so you don't have to worry too much about other people affecting your race. At least you'd hope so for now. It kind of has already happened, but now it's shaped up to be a little bit safer.
Yeah, it's a bit more of a situation where you can focus on one battle in particular, rather than having to keep track. We saw there was sort of 5 cars in a single battle at Daytona. This one, you know, like we're watching right here with Timothy Vaughan chasing down Darren Lobb. It's sort of just a 1v1 kind of race at the moment here for the 10th position. As Timothy's closing up the back here into the corkscrew. Not going to be close enough to do it there. We have seen in series like the IndyCar, you can try and make a move down there. There's different lines actually in braking. It looked like Timothy might have been thinking about it, but not on that occasion. But yeah, you can see moves of that. It's definitely a tough place to pull it off, and you have to commit to it. But I wonder if we'll see it in these Porsche cars.
Yeah, Timothy, a driver to me. Definitely, I see him someone who might challenge on a track like this. Like you said, oh no, actually, before I talk about that, Hamish absolutely spins out. Henry just going to zoom on by him. Luckily, not too affected by that, so he'll be pretty happy. And yeah, Hamish, not screwing anyone over. He's going to be a little bit happier about that too. Apart from the crash.
Yeah, this is high attrition racing, isn't it? Oh, is he going to spin himself? He gets on the brakes to try and save it. He manages to carry on. Oh, just as he managed to gain a spot from someone spinning, he almost lost it, but good save there. Just slam on the brakes as hard as he can and carry on, but it has cost him a lot of time.
And are my eyes deceiving me, or did I see? No, I thought I saw a few drops of rain, because that would really throw some crazy spanners in the works. I mean, the second half of that would be a lot. I mean, we're not even halfway through, but no rain to speak of just yet. But yeah, I mean, already so many spins, so many crashes. I mean, you can already see the tire tracks straight into the sand from some of our previous encounters. Really just speaking, I mean, look at Brad. I mean, he's just head-butted a Rhino there. Look at his car. It's just not looking good at all. He was actually took one of the earlier penalties, Brad Wybrow. I think actually the very first penalty in Laguna Seca today. So I guess that's the evidence of what happened there. Penalty perhaps deserved.
Yeah, lap 1 contact that was. So yeah, you can see the marks still running around on his car. Of course, damage definitely a factor here in iRacing, and it'll carry on throughout the whole race unless you pit and try and fix some of it. But of course, all the time lost in the pits will take you out of contention. So they want to avoid that if they can, for sure. Just starting to enter a bit more of a calmer middle phase of the race. We're seeing still some individual mistakes, but a little bit more spread out now, the field. As you can see, just down to 5th position, that's already 10 seconds out to the leader. As Hugo doing a good job to continue out in front with Ben Stewart, hunting him down, and Ashley Ewan. So it's a 3-way battle towards the front of the field, but then a bit of a gap now back to Michael Healy as we go. Take a look at Ben in 2nd place, and you can see the gaps between the front 3 there.
Yeah, it's not unreasonable for either of these guys to take a look at overtaking. I mean, in the amount of laps we have left, right, shaving off milliseconds here could give you that opportunity to maybe go for a bit of an overtake, but it may just be looking for one of those minor mistakes, slight mistakes coming out from the person in front of you. And to be honest, you talk about someone like Ben Stewart, probably not going to happen. Hugo Allen as well, setting at a very good qualifying time and being consistently good back in Daytona as well. This could be, I mean, you can't really rely on the mistakes coming out from the guy in front of you. You have to be shaving off those milliseconds, otherwise you're going to have to be happy with only 23 points.
Yeah, exactly. These are 3 great drivers that we've seen throughout the night already. Some getting tangled up in some incidents in the first race, but these guys top of their game, and you can see that, but they're not opening up a gap, they're not able to close the gap. They're all just such a level battle right now to try and push forward. And I wonder if they do maybe think about, conserving the tires for a couple of laps, let them cool down, and then having that couple of push laps to try and close the gap. It's all those sort of like little games that they can play to try and figure out how they can get an advantage to try and get the overtakes done.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, extremely hot weather here on Laguna Seca. You can see the sand baking in the hot sun there. Also creating quite a volatile off-road track there for anyone who wants to dip their toes into it, and we've seen it already claim quite a few victims. Moving back a little bit further on the pack, we see Dylan Jordan, winner of Daytona previously tonight, all the way back up to 6th, so a respectable position right now, but again, 11 seconds behind the leader of the pack. Has a chance to maybe overtake Matt Stevens, but even then it's still a similar gap from 1st and 2nd. So he'll still have to be relying on perhaps a mistake, but maybe perhaps some of those mind games you're talking about conserving the tire wear, maybe getting it a little bit in the later portion of the race. Still plenty of time to go as we just about hit the halfway mark of the track. 13 laps out of 25.
And I think what we're seeing here is maybe Lap's car is going to play a little bit of a role here, because I think that's Matt Stevens. No, he isn't. Oh, who are we on board with? Dylan? No, so he is actually just catching up to Matt Stevens. Sorry, I saw the damage on the front of the car. I thought he might have been running a little bit slower, but he is losing time to the cars behind, but he is actually holding 5th position at the moment.
Yeah, and even the 2 drivers behind Dylan Jordan, you got Carl Sampson and Nathan as well. Nathan, again, a very early front runner on Daytona, but got caught up in the shenanigans as well, and so he'll also be quite hungry for one of those early positions, you know, moving up a little further. But again, with this distance, he's really just relying on getting ahead of the 3 in front of him, perhaps, if you can see any kind of openings. But most drivers really not opening the door for anyone at this stage, and honestly, a lot of them aren't looking to take it either.
Yeah, this is the closest battle on the track, but you can see they're just kind of struggling a little bit to close that gap to the drivers in front of them. And through all the sweeping corners, I wonder if that's just a bit of, maybe a little bit of dirty air playing a role, and as he slides on the exit. But also just being able to spot your line when you're that tucked in behind the car in front of you that close can be tricky as well, and the small details can put you off a little bit. But it looks like Nathan is on the charge here. He's carrying extra speed ahead of coming up to Carl. He's going to go to the inside. Carl leaves the inside door open, and he's going to get cleanly through. Nice move there from Nathan.
Yeah, Nathan, again, going to be really happy about that one, especially after Daytona. Really wants to get just every extra position that he can. Missed out on a lot of championship points on Daytona. Needs to get them all back here in Laguna Seca, and 7th will be all right, but if he's gunning for any of those top spots, that top 3, maybe even that $700 for 1st place, 7th place might not just cut it. He might have to go a little bit further than that. And I can see he's got his eyes set on the next position there. Dylan Jordan, again, the winner of Daytona. A tough opponent to battle, but a lot closer this time than he was on Daytona.
Yeah, this is us seeing, I think, how the order's been mixed up a little bit compared to the last race, and that's, I think, going to open up the championship a little bit. We are only talking about being in the 2nd race here, but with our race winner from race number 1 down in 6th, and Nathan, of course, that kind of gives him a chance to score some extra points and try and close that gap in the championship. But of course, they're on the track as well. These are race drivers. They want every position they can get. Championship be damned, you know, they're going to be pushing wherever they can.
Yeah, definitely all about the pride. You know, we talk about it when we talk about the prize pool. For a lot of drivers, it's a bonus to them, right? Like, they love the cash money, but they love getting that 1st position, that pole position, much, much more, and, you know, showing off as well on the tracks that they love and spend so much time dedicated to practicing on a lot of these tracks here. I mean, you can imagine the amount of laps that they've done all on this track to be consistently this good. And we saw even in the qualifying times how close a lot of them were, and even how well they can improve lap on lap. So that's something that you can look forward to. There is still 10 more laps. Each one, you're able to shave just a few milliseconds off, maybe even half a second here and there, and that can be your opportunity to overtake here. Darren Lobb has his eyes set on Brad Jessen here, middle of the pack battle here. And again, for some of these, oh, wow, really getting up close there. Not looking to overtake just yet, but I mean, for these guys, these points could be crucial if you're consistently getting positions like this.
Yeah, absolutely. And the way the point system does work, it's 24 points for 1st, 23 for 2nd, and it's just 1 point difference between every position on the grid. So if you're battling for 1st and 2nd, you know, that's 1 extra point. If you're battling for 10th and 11th, that's one extra point as well. So every position definitely crucial, and they want to work for it. And the driver in front is going to make the driver behind work for it in every scenario as well.
And it's a great way to make each battle, no matter where it is, just that much more exciting to watch. I mean, we love it anyway, but when it is the same, it just feels so good. I mean, obviously, yeah, going for that first place, those battles are always going to be fun because it's the leader of the pack, but having the same impact here for Brad and for Darren here, it's got to feel good for these guys, as well as us viewers, getting to watch it as well go on and actually mean something too. So while we're talking about that, Brad's still fending him off a little bit tight and wide on some of these turns, but still holding on to it, holding on to the stability of their vehicle as well. One loose turn, one little spin now could be dangerous, but Brad, he holds strong.
Yeah, a little bit of sand there getting kicked up again. Keeps it under control and keeps it close to the driver in front. I love all the livery we're seeing on these cars as well, something we haven't talked too much about in this race, but being able to spot the different drivers and being able to see them look so legit. And with their, I was going to say sponsors' names on the side, great move down the inside there. He's managed to make it stick, he has, so down into turn number 1. Gets it done under brakes, and that could be a tricky thing to do with these Porsche cars. No ABS, and balancing that brake pedal, is great. He's done a great job with it.
Yeah, I mean, Brad just left the door open for just a second, and immediately Darren pounces straight onto it. I mean, that's what is going to be earning you these extra points here and there. And one good race on another track in an upcoming week, right? Like, these points could matter. This 1 point here could matter and get him into the prize pool. So absolutely stoked for him there. Timothy Vaughan now actually got a sight set on Brad. Maybe he saw Brad leave the door open before. Maybe he's got a little idea of his own, sneaking on by. Get himself an extra little point onto the leaderboard there. So yeah, as we can see, still battling here around that 10th, 11th, even the 9th place spots there. Good 2, maybe even 3-way battle there if you're including, that 11th position as well. Very, very tight between a lot of these races. But moving up the field here, we've got Matt Stevens. Again, another, I want to say, consistent racer back from Daytona. Got mixed up again in drama, but for now, he's managed to avoid a lot of it, pulled ahead, and really just has his own little battle to go ahead with Dylan Jordan right on his tail. Again, that's the winner from Daytona. That's gonna feel like some real pressure.
Yeah, absolutely. Matt Stevens with a bit of a bump on his nose there, but it doesn't seem to be affecting him too much as he's managing to hold on to a 5th position and keep that little bit of a gap behind him, as you say, to Dylan, a previous race winner. So good job at the moment from Matt Stevens. Maybe just lacking a little bit of extra performance on the front of his car, but still pedaling around here plenty fast. And you've got to be happy if he is suffering a little bit to still be holding on to 5th position. If you can get a good result in a bad situation, then that's what you need when it is a long championship.
Yeah, we saw a few drivers do that back in Daytona. I want to say Michael Healy shoved back quite far back through a penalty, but still managed to hold on to a respectable top 8. But here he is, Michael Healy in this race, top 4, so also, again, doing pretty well. Looking right now, though, at Nathan Anderson, another front runner from the Daytona, at least in the early portions, the first half of the track. Top 7, so still respectable and close enough to maybe make some attempts here over on Dylan Jordan. Again, like, never an easy battle, but he was experienced in battling with Dylan in the last track, so should be no stranger to that one.
Yeah, and I think we're seeing a little bit of different strengths in different parts of the circuit as well, as that gap was opening up through the first half of the circuit and then closing back down in the second half of the lap. So yeah, definitely, when you're the driver behind, you're trying to spot where those strengths are and try and line up and move if you can get close enough. And at the moment, it's Ewan Baker trying to line up and move because he is close in on the back of Ben Stewart. And I've been watching the times the last few laps. He's been sitting quite close for a while as they both are just dropping off Hugo in the lead a little bit. I wonder if Ewan Baker's figured out where he might have a little bit of extra pace ahead of Ben, where he might be able to think about a move and try and go down the inside.
Yeah, Ewan Baker, I mean, he knows that he's able to shave off the time every single lap. He's a consistent lap setter, but against Ben Stewart, I've got to give him the consistency award as well. So while Ewan Baker might slip up every so often towards him each lap, but like he said, the real battle is going to be going for the actual overtake here, and I think Ben is just such a great battler that it's going to be very hard to get by him, especially here in Laguna Seca, a very rough track where mistakes can cost you absolutely dearly, and I don't think after Daytona that Ewan Baker really wants to throw too many more risks out the window here.
Yeah, I think that's probably going to play on the mind a little bit, isn't it? You don't want to send a Hail Mary from a few car lengths back and have a collision and lose that third spot and end up back in 10th or something like that. So yeah, definitely you've got to try and find the spot. And I think what we're seeing is it's quite hard to follow around the circuit and try and get in close. You can see that gap opening up again. So we're on board now with Ben looking forward, a couple of seconds behind Hugo. So that gap not really growing out. I think Hugo's just managing this lead at the moment, knows what he needs to do, can keep an eye on the leaderboard and keep an eye on the cars behind. Doesn't need to overdrive the car when you've got a couple of seconds lead like that.
Yeah, it's a bit of a repeat again, except for the majority here in Laguna Seca compared to Daytona, where we did have battles for first and second, but Hugo Allen just pulling ahead. Again, like after all the drama from last time, that's exactly what you want to have. It's just you're playing time trial at this point, right? You're not really worrying. Even the lapped cars you mentioned might become a thing doesn't really seem to be coming close. So yeah, Hugo is going to be pretty okay with where he is.
Yeah, 5 laps to go. He just needs to carry on what he's been doing so far as we get close move here. Down to turn number 1. There is a spot where you want to try and look for a move, but wasn't quite close enough on that occasion. Matt Stevens still hanging on with that damaged front bumper.
Yeah, Dylan Jordan also not looking that 100% on his vehicle, but yeah, I mean, look, you can maybe get a little tiny bit of slipstream there, but the overtake opportunities are just not there for Dylan. You can see he's constantly just looking for that opening. We've seen them be given away before, but by Matt Stevens, not quite every time. Nathan as well, still hot on the tail too, so any kind of slip-ups, any kind of risks taken by Dylan that don't pay off very well, Nathan's going to be straight on his tail and looking for his own opportunities. So a really good three-way battle here, more so for Dylan and Matt Stevens, but again, like the opportunity of anyone pulling one out ahead here is there for the taking, and 5 laps to go. The opportunities to do so, they're growing less and less. Are the drivers going to get a little restless, maybe look for that open door? We'll have to see.
Yeah, and just a reminder to anyone tuning in, it is a one make in these Porsche GT3 cars, so they're all in equal machinery, and we do have a fixed setup as well. So all the cars equal, it's just down to who can drive it the best on the day and who has put that prepreparation and practice in.
Is he playing in VR? Oh, that is so good.
That is awesome.
You can actually see it on the screen as well. On our little webcam that we've got going on there. That is so cool. I love seeing that. I wonder if that, I wonder how well different races would actually be affected by playing better in VR. I mean, what do you reckon, Matt, while we got a bit of a break here? Do you think you play better in VR?
It definitely can give you some good awareness when you're in those close battles. You know, if you've got a car next to you, you can just look over, glance over and see how close you are, and it allows you to, run those fine margins when you need to. But for me personally, I find it a little bit unsettling to be sitting in VR. Mostly just when you do the practice on the flat screen, you've nailed all your braking points exactly where they're going to be based on the screen you're looking at, and you jump in the car and jump in the VR. And, it's just that little unsettling. As we see someone pulling over, is he just getting out of the way? Is that Derek?
That could be someone like...
Or someone further down the order, perhaps.
Yeah, Brad. I think it might have actually been Nicholas. Nicholas Lowndes dropping down a lot further. It might have been him, but we'll have to double check on that one. But yeah, I mean, so what you're saying is with the VR thing is just always do VR so you're used to it. Gotcha.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's definitely a fun and awesome experience though to get in there, and you can see he had a full direct drive wheel and everything as well, so he's got a great setup there, and a lot of these Kiwis and racing guys that race in the league together, love the sim racing stuff, so they've done it a lot, and you'll see plenty of good setups, I think, from the drivers on this grid.
I'm just so stoked that he's racing in VR. Actually, I believe that was an overtake there by Ben, Ewan, Hugo. Hugo actually getting stuck with the pit, I think. No, still sitting in the lead, but no, pitting must have been a penalty. Something's going on there. We'll have to get confirmation of that. But yeah, no, Ben now able to take the lead, and Ewan's still kind of hot on his tail, just barely a second ahead of him. I wonder what's going on there as now Hugo's appearing on the leader position once more. Who knows, perhaps a bit of a graphical slip up there, but we'll get a confirmation on that just shortly away. But for now, Hugo did not pit is our confirmation. So what you guys are seeing on there is a graphical glitch. Do not worry, Hugo fans, he is still well in the lead. But that battle between Ben and Ewan, I've been keeping an eye on that as well. I believe that one is still looking pretty crazy too, between the few of them. And yeah, I mean, you can kind of see it going on right now. Here's Hugo Allen, confirmed not in the pits, by the way. I haven't seen any pits that look like that, so he's doing all right. But yeah, you can see Ben and Ewan in the background there, still having their battle.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. God, it gave me a shock there, so you can come to the pits after Hugo ran into trouble in race number 1. I was disappointed for him if it was going to happen again, but no, out in front, just a little leaderboard glitch there, and this battle for second continues to rage on, and it looks like it's going to go the whole way down to the wire. Ben continuing to keep it clean and super speedy, and is able to stay in front of Ewan. No mistakes coming out of him, and Ewan, just keeps searching, keeps applying the pressure, see if he can try and make him crack. And they've pulled away. The top 3 have opened up quite the gap, just slowly eked away from 4th position Michael Healy.
Look at Nathan's setup. I mean, this time it's not so much about the setup, but the background. That's a sweet backdrop he's got going on there. And as you can see with the I'm assuming that's multiple monitors curving around him. He's going to have a really sick view as well. Almost kind of like that VR setup as well, where you've got it kind of all around you. Yeah, I mean, you're not joking when you say these guys have got some serious setups, Matt.
Yeah, that's awesome to see. The real cars in the background as well. He's in the garage. That's got to be an inspiring spot to sit when you're in racing and in a competition like this. And yeah, it's interesting you see the difference in preferences between some of the drivers. Some guys, they swear by the VR. They say, it helps them a lot and they love it. And then other drivers will be like, no, give me 3 monitors, side by side. And that's my preferred option. So it's interesting that we see on the grid tonight, even those differences coming out.
I swear one year we had a controller player as well. I mean, they're kind of all over the place. But yeah, I mean, love the differences between them. With the final lap now going on, there's no doubt that Hugo should be pulling this one out, short of any catastrophic mistakes. But even Ben Stewart, Ewan Baker, maybe a bit of a battle going on between them, but still half a second. I don't think you're shaving off that time in the last half of the lap. So victory lap here for Hugo Allen. Happy after what happened on Daytona. He'll be glad to finally get a clean one. Pulling off ahead, no contest, no shenanigans, no drama, and 24 points to bank up. Following by Ben and Ewan picking up their 23 and 22 as well. Ewan probably a little disappointed you couldn't get that battle against Ben, but honestly, Ben, like I was saying, consistent battler, can hold you off and also keep you on your toes. So glad to see that pay off for him as well.
Yeah, it seemed like being able to keep it clean was such a crucial factor in this race, and not make those mistakes as we saw Ben just keep it clean the whole time. Maybe even, proving a bit more of an advantage than having the outright paces. Ewan looked like he had the speed in behind him, but to find that opportunity to overtake was real difficult through the second half of this race. And then Michael doing well in behind him. Matt Stevens held off Dylan for that whole time, so great driving from him as he was under a lot of pressure as well. And then Nathan, we talked about, he did manage to gain some spots, but 7th spot in the end.
Yeah, I mean, also credit to Dylan for holding off Nathan. Definitely a tough battler to have right behind you. So good performance coming out from all 3 of those drivers as well. To get respectable positions as well, especially after a few things happened a little bit early on. A little bit of devastation though for Antal, I've got to say, after those 2 tracks. We had pretty high hopes for him, and yet very, very, very rough results coming out for the man in this race as we finish up here. And yeah, take a look at some of these last results. I'd say that's probably most devastating result. I don't know if you agree with me there, Matt, but yeah, Antal really can't be happy after tonight.
Yeah, to come away with 2 races that, you know, involve drama, the penalty in the first race, the drive-through penalty, and then having a crash and a bit of a spin in race number 2. He's going to be a bit frustrated because he was competitive, he had the pace, so that's the positive he can take away from the night for sure, is he has the pace to compete with all of these drivers. He just needs to get a little bit more lucky and you know, keep it between the white lines going forward.
Scrolling on down, of course, Timothy Vaughan, another racer that we kind of talked about a little bit, getting consistently middle of the pack positions there. I feel like you said, you know, a little bit newer to iRacing, could be looking to, over the weeks, maybe start pushing up that position as well. But yeah, heading down the bottom, it's the unfortunate players of the drama tonight. Unfortunately, a lot of penalties handed out tonight, not just in Laguna Seca, but back on Daytona as well. But someone that was not penalized here in Laguna Seca today is Hugo Allen, the winner of race number 2 on Laguna Seca. Going to take away that 24 points. The man had a very solid performance, got a great qualifying time, and then held onto that pole position for the majority, well, for almost all of the race. So really good performance for him. I reckon he'll be as stoked as he, well, looked in that photo there. He looked pretty happy in that one, so I feel like that's how he's feeling right now. But Matt, I want to see the leaderboard, right? I want to see how all these points stood up, because a lot of races and a lot of really weird results between the 2 races. So let's add them all up and take a look here. You can see the total points there on the far right side. As we can see right there at the top, Dylan Jordan, his first place on Daytona, definitely carrying him there. The 19, very respectable there, keeping him in first place. Matt Stevens there with 41. 21 and 20 looking pretty good. Michael Healy as well on his tail. But before we move on to the next 12, Matt, anyone that you're pretty happy with there, you want to see further up?
I think Hugo has shown with that race win, but also across the night, just how quick he can be. He qualified second in both races. He just came a bit unstuck in the first race. So definitely showed he's strong. He's a little bit down after tonight's point in terms of the points, but I think we'll be keeping an eye on him throughout the whole season.
Yeah, and again, like some of these bottom 12 here, had a lot of fun battles. And like we were saying, you know, a lot of battles still mean a lot, you know, where there is 1 point on the line. You could see them, maybe some of the drivers that fall back thanks to penalties, right, would have to battle some of those drivers as well. And, you know, they'd still be fighting for it, because a point is a point at the end of the day. So I want to get your final thoughts, Monkey Matt, on today. I mean, I know I said before, you know, there was a lot going on, so maybe nail it down to your favorite things here. What was better? What was more dramatic, Daytona or Laguna Seca?
Daytona was more dramatic. I mean, we had a calm start, but then it really ramped up and just kept going right through to the end. So that was all on. That battle for the lead as well between multiple cars was really hectic. But then, yeah, Laguna Seca, it kind of settled down a little bit more in the middle there, and we saw those drivers really get into their groove and start to perform, like setting quick lap times, lap after lap after lap. Was really cool. And I'm just glad that it was exciting racing throughout the whole night, because that kept a big smile on my face the whole time.
Yeah, honestly, some of the best racing I've seen tonight. A lot of action going in. A big shout out as we close out the night to our sponsors, Samsung, of course, for sponsoring the Samsung iRacing New Zealand Championship, Roccat as well. And look, moving on to next week, we're going to be leaving the USA, going somewhere else around the world. Monkey Matt, I can't wait to see you there. And to everyone at home, I can't wait to see you there as well. And see you all next week.